Chapter 446. Hearing these words, this person should be the Flying Sand Wanderer. Wang Daoyuan's divine sense went through the narrow gap above the valley and looked towards the sky. He saw a white-haired old man hovering above the valley on his sword. Wang Daoyuan wasn't sure that he could defeat a peak Zifu disciple, but he wouldn't be unable to resist. If he couldn't win, he could just ride the windfire flying kite and escape. How could the Flying Sand Wanderer catch up to him? If he really had the ability to catch up to the windfire flying kite, then he could only use the purple thunder evil punishing token given by his master to send him away. Using this thing to deal with a golden core cultivator might not be able to take him down, but dealing with a peak Zifu disciple was definitely not a problem. The difference between a golden core and a Zifu disciple was like a moat. Although it was rare for a peak foundation establishment cultivator to exchange 2 moves with a Zifu disciple, it was still possible to find a few. Many of the direct disciples of the major powers could do this. A peak Zifu disciple who could exchange 2 moves with a golden core cultivator was hard to come by in hundreds of years. Although Wang Daoyuan didn't want trouble, he wasn't afraid of the Flying Sand Wanderer. He laughed. "Daoyu, do you want to come down and fight, or should I go up and fight?" The Flying Sand Wanderer replied, "It's better to come up and fight. The valley below is really too narrow. I'm afraid it'll be hard for you and me to use our skills." Wang Daoyuan followed the small path and walked out of the valley. Riding the terminating heaven sword, he flew into the air and faced the Flying Sand Wanderer. Soon after, he took out the white tiger blade and laughed. "I didn't want to be a busybody, but things always come to me. I have no enmity with the Flying Sand Wanderers. Why does Daoyu have to force me?" The Flying Sand Wanderer stroked his beard and laughed. As expected of a sword cultivator, this natal artifact is quite extraordinary. Daoyu also has good skills. If I didn't send people to keep an eye on the Huang Jagged Mountain area, I really wouldn't have been able to find you. I see that you're not very old, but to have such strength, your talent is also out of the ordinary. I'm already old, I just want to try again and see if I can form a golden core. I have a few daughters, not to say they're national beauties, but they're all 1 in a million. My daughters can all be married to you, and the Flying Sand Bandits' family business can all be handed over to you. If I can form my golden core, you will be the son-in-law of a golden core cultivator. Even if he was a live-in son-in-law, it wouldn't be embarrassing if word got out. What does Daoyu think? Wang Daoyuan smiled contemptuously. To me, forming the Aurus core is just a matter of time. Even if he's a half-step Yuanying's live-in son-in-law, I don't like him. Daoyu, make your move. I still have a lot of things to do. I don't have time to chat with you. Flying Sand Loose Cultivator coldly snorted. Such big words. After saying that, he waved his right hand and 3 large stones flew over. The white tiger blade in Wang Daoyuan's hand flickered with a silver light, and instantly condensed into 3 sword beams. The sword light flew out and sliced the 3 boulders in half. The 2 halves of the boulder were exhausted and fell down, but the sword radiance still had some energy left. Flying Sand Loose Cultivator frowned. Wang Daoyuan's casual sword radiance had such power. If he used a sword cultivation spell, how strong would it be? Ordinary spells wouldn't be of much use, and would waste his spiritual power in vain. It would be better to directly use a killing move. He dodged the 3 sword beams and took out a foot-tall earthy yellow gourd. Under the urging of his spiritual power, the gourd quickly grew, and finally grew to more than 10 meters tall. He opened the gourd's lid and a river of yellow sand gushed out. After a few breaths, the yellow sand that gushed out filled the entire sky. Like a sandstorm, it pressed down on Wang Daoyuan. The sandstorm pressed down on Wang Daoyuan. He probed into the sandstorm and was shocked. This sandstorm wasn't made of ordinary yellow sand, and it seemed to have an extremely strong suppressive force. Once he got close, he would be suppressed, and even flying on his sword would be difficult. This kind of spell actually restrained the white tiger blade. Even if he used sky-chopping sword, it wouldn't have any effect on this sandstorm. Flying Sand Loose Cultivator hid behind the sandstorm, and it would be hard for him to hurt him. This sand didn't consume Flying Sand Loose Cultivator's spiritual power, but the spiritual power accumulated in the earthy yellow gourd. Moreover, while the gourd was releasing yellow sand, it was also constantly absorbing the surrounding spiritual power. At this rate, there would be more and more yellow sand. Of course, Wang Daoyuan wasn't without a way. Drawing out a wisp of returning dust flame, no matter how much sand there was, it wouldn't be enough. However, once the returning dust flame was exposed, he would probably be besieged by all the Zifu cultivators of Mingsha Plain. Earth attribute spiritual fire was extremely rare, and the returning dust flame was so powerful. If the news spread, there would probably be Jindan cultivators coming to kill him. For a battle that didn't matter whether it was winning or losing, it wasn't worth paying such a big price. If there was a high-level wind attribute spell, it could also completely suppress this sandstorm. Unfortunately, Wang Daoyuan didn't. He didn't intend to take this attack head-on, and turned around on his sword to pull away. This sandstorm didn't have much effect on spiritual sense. Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense was always paying attention to Flying Sand Loose Cultivator's every move. At this time, Flying Sand Loose Cultivator revealed a strange smile. Wang Daoyuan thought to himself that this wasn't good, this was a trick. Without waiting for him to react, the speed of the sandstorm suddenly increased, already surpassing the speed of his flying sword. He immediately called out the flaming wind kite. Under full control, its speed soared, surpassing Flying Sand. Flying Sand Loose Cultivator followed behind the sandstorm, and poured spiritual power and spiritual sense into the gourd. The gourd spat out yellow sand several times faster. The speed of the entire sandstorm was also constantly increasing. At this rate, its speed would soon catch up to Wang Daoyuan. Right now, the scale of the sandstorm was already very large. Even if he used evasion techniques, he wouldn't be able to go around it before being caught up. If he continued to run, it would be a battle of attrition with Flying Sand Loose Cultivator. It would depend on whether the sandstorm would catch up to him first, or if Flying Sand Loose Cultivator wouldn't be able to hold on first. Wang Daoyuan didn't like to gamble with his life. Rather than gambling with his life, he might as well use his ultimate move and break through the sandstorm. He condensed Earth Attribute spiritual power and used the Seal of Kirin. The Seal of Kirin also had a suppressive ability. The suppressive power of the 5-element seal was strengthened by the Seal of Kirin fusing with the other 4 artifacts. Let's try to see if the Seal of Kirin can suppress the sandstorm. The yellow Kirin seal's shadow quickly formed. Wang Daoyuan controlled the Kirin seal to suppress the sandstorm. There was still some effect. The part of the sandstorm that was facing the Kirin seal had its speed somewhat reduced. However, the speed of the two sides was completely unaffected. If this continues, he would be surrounded by the sandstorm. The power of a Kirin seal's shadow was only equivalent to an ordinary rank 3 spell. Wang Daoyuan didn't expect to be able to suppress the sandstorm. It was fine as long as it was effective. He once again condensed the other 4 artifacts and fused them with the Kirin seal, turning it into the 5-element seal. Even if the 5-element seal wasn't fused with the artifacts, its power could still be ranked among the top rank 4 spells. Its suppressive power was definitely not something the Seal of Kirin could compare to. Once the Devil Seal was used, the entire sandstorm was suppressed, and its speed suddenly decreased. Flying Sand Vagabond looked at the 5 elements Devil Suppression Seal and revealed an excited expression. He no longer used all his strength to activate the yellow gourd, but took out his life artifact. This life artifact was also a yellow seal, and its appearance was very similar to the Kirin seal. Once the seal was used, the sandstorm no longer moved forward. Instead, it gathered above Flying Sand Practitioner's head. The yellow gourd also continued to spit out yellow sand above his head. Wang Daoyuan naturally knew that this old guy had used his trump card. With the previous lesson, he knew that running away was useless. He might as well give him a fierce blow. His cultivation had broken through to the middle stage of the Zifu realm, and he had also comprehended the White Tiger's charm. The White Tiger's sword intent had also improved by quite a bit. All of these would increase the power of the 5-element seal. Right now he really couldn't say how much power the Devil Seal could unleash. Summoning the Black Tortoise Shield, he fused the White Tiger Blade and the Black Tortoise Shield into the Devil Seal. He also poured all the spiritual energy in his body into it. Soon after, he took out a jar of 1,000-year Spirit Peach Dew and drank a few mouthfuls. This was to prevent his spiritual energy from being exhausted after a single move, allowing him to take advantage of the situation. On Flying Sand Practitioner's side, the yellow sand that filled the sky gathered above his head, condensing into a 300-meter square seal. The life artifact in his hand also fused into the 300-meter seal. The moment they fused, a yellow light flickered and a wave of power was emitted. Wang Daoyuan was more than 5 kilometers away from him, but he could still feel traces of the suppressive power. If he was in front of him, he probably wouldn't even have the strength to stand up. Chapter 447. The Flying Sand Sangha finished forming the seal, retrieving the yellow gourd and the flying sword under his feet. This was to use all of his spiritual energy on the 300-meter large seal. Under his control, the large seal flew towards Wang Daoyuan. The moment he was locked on by the large seal, Wang Daoyuan felt as if a mountain was pressing down on him. Even his breathing was a bit rough, and the spiritual energy in his body was not flowing smoothly. The closer the seal was, the stronger the suppression. He didn't dare to delay any longer and controlled the 5 elements devil suppression seal, smashing it towards the 300-meter large seal in the air. The 5 elements devil suppression seal was only 6 inches square, and couldn't compare to the 300-meter large seal. But after the devil suppression seal met it, Wang Daoyuan felt that the suppression was reduced by more than half. About 5 miles away from Wang Daoyuan, the devil suppression seal and the 300-meter large seal collided. However, there wasn't any big movement, and the 2 seals were in a stalemate in the air. After all, Wang Daoyuan's cultivation was a bit weaker, and the 5 elements devil suppression seal lacked the most crucial Kirin seal, so it was at a disadvantage in terms of suppression. When the 2 seals were in a stalemate, he could still feel the suppression from the 300-meter large seal. At this time, Wang Daoyuan's face was pale, and his forehead was covered in cold sweat. On the other side, the flying sand Sunga was also not feeling well. He was also panting and sweating. But he still had some strength left. After all, his cultivation was higher, and his spiritual energy was more vigorous. Seeing Wang Daoyuan's appearance of not being able to hold on at any time, the flying sand Sunga smiled. His opponent could fall at any time and he could still hold on for a while. How could he lose when he had the absolute advantage? After half a cup of tea's time, Wang Daoyuan was still holding on, and his condition had improved. The 1,000-year-old spirit peach dew he drank before was still recovering his spiritual energy. The flying sand Sunga couldn't smile anymore. His current condition was even worse than Wang Daoyuan's, and took out a wine jar. This wine jar was very small, and it looked like it could only hold half a kilogram of wine. After he opened the jar, he drank 2 small mouthfuls with a pained face, and then put the jar away. With the replenishment of the spirit wine, his condition improved after a dozen breaths. After increasing the input of spiritual power into the 300-meter large seal, the devil-vanquishing seal was forced to slowly retreat. This battle, which had been in a stalemate for a long time, entered Wang Daoyuan's favorite segment, competing for resources. Although he was at a disadvantage as long as his opponent couldn't win quickly, he would definitely have the last laugh. Wang Daoyuan took out a large wine jar that could hold 10 jeans of wine. This jar was filled with 1,000-year-old spirit peach dew. He drank a few mouthfuls and drank more than half a caddy. Loose cultivator Flying Sand's eyelids twitched as he watched. That jar of spirit wine of his was only 700 to 800 years old, and there wasn't even half a jean left. He wasn't willing to take it out unless it was a desperate situation. The 2 of them weren't too far apart, and with his cultivation at the peak of the Violet Palace realm, he was able to clearly see the quality of the wine in Wang Daoyuan's hand with his divine sense. This jar of wine was definitely more than 1,000 years old. If this continued, he would definitely die. Loose cultivator Flying Sand's eyes revealed a resolute look, and the spiritual power on the 300-meter large seal also became berserk. Wang Daoyuan knew that this old fellow wanted to play ruthlessly, and immediately withdrew the devil-vanquishing seal. Unfortunately, before he could control the devil-vanquishing seal, the 300-meter large seal exploded, and the yellow sand turned into nothingness. The 5 elements devil-vanquishing seal was directly scattered, and the black tortoise shield and white tiger blade received some damage. It was even more serious than when they were acting last time. He was also implicated, and the qi and blood in his body were boiling. His meridians and dantian felt as if they were on fire. After spitting out a mouthful of blood, he felt a bit better. He promptly withdrew his 2 natal artifacts, and took out a sweet rain jade dew pill and swallowed it. On the other side, loose cultivator Flying Sand also didn't feel good. After forcefully detonating the 300-meter large seal, his earthen yellow seal also received some damage and he was also implicated. However, his injuries were a lot lighter than Wang Daoyuan's, but his spiritual power consumption was extremely large. After swallowing a pill, he said with a smile, "You should be Wang Daoyuan, right? There are only a few mid-stage Zifu realm cultivators with penta-spiritual roots, and only you can use the 5 elements devil-vanquishing seal to such an extent. This place isn't far from the treasured Cauldron Mountain, and the matter of you defeating the Golden Core direct disciples of the Tai Sword Sect and Wind Snow Deity Palace was widely spread here." Wang Daoyuan took a deep breath and said, "If you know too much, you won't live long. Even if you know, it's best to pretend that you don't know." Loose cultivator Flying Sand didn't mind, and took out a palm-sized earthen yellow jade pendant and said, "You're Taoist Thunderflame's disciple, so you must have some protective treasures on you. However, I've been roaming the Mingsha Plains for hundreds of years. How could I not have any protective treasures? You're also from a cultivator clan, and your ancestor is a golden core cultivator, so you should know what a treasure talisman is, right? Wang Daoyuan naturally knew about treasure talismans. This thing was a consumable magic tool that extracted the origin of a natal artifact. Refining a treasure talisman wasn't difficult, and Zifu realm cultivators could do it, but the price was extremely high. After refining a natal artifact into a treasure talisman, even if it wasn't completely destroyed, it would still consume hundreds of years of refining. Unless the oil lamp ran out, no one would be willing to use their natal artifact to refine a treasure talisman. After all, passing down a natal artifact to a descendant wouldn't have much use, so it was better to refine it into a treasure talisman, and leave behind a life-saving treasure for the descendant. The jade pendant in loose cultivator Flying Sand's hand had an extremely strong fluctuation of spiritual energy, and it could at least display the strength of an early golden core cultivator. Wang Daoyuan also took out the purple lightning evil punishing token and said with a smile, "I naturally know about treasure talismans, and this treasure talisman of yours can easily kill me. However, once this treasure in my hand is activated, those below golden core will definitely die. Do you want to give it a try?" Loose cultivator Flying Sand bitterly smiled and said, "Previously I thought too highly of myself, but I didn't expect to meet Taoist Thunderflame's disciple. The Flying Sand Bandit's muddy pond really can't raise a flood dragon like you. You and I can be considered to have no deep hatred between us, so there's no need to fight to the death. Let's turn our hostility into business, what do you think?" Both of them put away their life-saving treasures, and Wang Daoyuan also took the opportunity to heal himself with the Azure Dragon Pearl. After a few breaths of time, he stabilized his injuries and replied, "As long as it's not a losing business, I'm willing to listen." Seeing that Wang Daoyuan had the intention to do business, loose cultivator Flying Sand felt relieved, and said, "Daoyu's natal artifact should be the inheritance of Taoist Fu Mo. The reason you came to the southern wasteland this time should be to search for earth essence to refine the Kirin seal, right? I've also investigated the spiritual veins in Mingsha Plain, and there's no trace of earth essence. Otherwise, I would have already taken it and refined it into my natal artifact. Speaking of which, we can be considered to be of the same origin, and you should be able to see that this natal artifact of mine is related to the Kirin seal. This seal is called the Thick Earth Devil Suppressing Seal, and it's based on the Kirin seal. Its power and potential are far inferior to the Kirin seal, but it's superior in that it doesn't require earth essence. The refinement method of this Thick Earth Devil Suppressing Seal was also obtained by exploring the cave of a predecessor. This senior lived slightly later than Taoist Fu Mo. By chance he obtained Taoist Fu Mo's inheritance. He was an earth attribute cultivator, and thus decided to refine the Kirin seal as his natal artifact. Unfortunately, it's hard to find earth essence. Therefore he modified the Kirin seal to create this Thick Earth Devil Suppressing Seal. This senior had a book that recorded his life experiences, and it mentioned the process of him searching for earth essence. According to the book, he once found a treasured land that could nurture earth essence, but unfortunately the earth essence had yet to take shape. Now 7,000 to 8,000 years have passed, and the earth essence should have been nurtured by now. Daoyu should be interested in the location of the earth essence, right? When Wang Daoyuan heard this, he didn't hide his intention and directly said, "I'm not a hothead who just left the mountain. I know the rules. Just tell me what you want me to do." Loose practitioner Flying Sand praised, "Daoyu is indeed straightforward. Then I won't beat around the bush. I wonder if Daoyu has heard of the true devil blood lotus?" Wang Daoyuan had a puzzled look on his face. He didn't have any high-level pill refinement inheritance. There were many rare spiritual plants that he didn't know about, and he had never heard of the true devil blood lotus. Chapter 448. Ever since Wang Daoyuan had obtained the spiritual pearl space, he had been particularly interested in all kinds of strange spiritual plants. Seeing that he was interested in the true demonic blood lotus, loose cultivator Flying Sand struck while the iron was hot. This true demonic blood lotus is just like its name, related to the demon race. Legend has it that in ancient times, a high-level demon who walked the path of body refinement brought disaster to the southern wasteland and was killed by a powerful senior. The fleshly body of the devil was buried in a place where, over the years, it turned into a mountain range. Where his blood essence gathered, a heavenly treasure like the true devil blood lotus was nurtured. The seeds of the true devil blood lotus can greatly increase the strength of the fleshly body. It can also assist in the cultivation of some body refining techniques of devil cultivators. Wang Daoyuan said impatiently, "In your current state you won't be thinking about refining your body. If you have any use for the true demonic blood lotus, just tell me. If there is any danger, don't hide it." Loose cultivator Flying Sand laughed bitterly and said, "You are still young and vigorous. You don't know the hardships of us. After 300 years of age, it would be difficult for one's vitality to increase without the replenishment of spirit items. After 400 years, one's qi and blood would decline rapidly. Even if there were spiritual items that could replenish qi and blood, they could only slow down the rate of deterioration. Forming the core required one to fuse their true yuan with their blood essence. Not only did one need to be at the peak of the Zifu realm, one also needed to have a sufficiently powerful qi and blood. I'm already over 400 years old now, and there's still a long way to go for my qi and blood to reach core formation. If I can't find a heavenly treasure that can strengthen my qi and blood, I will never have any hope of forming my gold core in this lifetime. This true devil blood lotus is my last hope to form my gold core." However, that mountain range was the burial ground of the devil clan. The devil qi was dense, and many devil cultivators cultivated there. Once the true demonic blood lotus bloomed, it would definitely attract a large number of competitors. With my own strength, it's impossible for me to obtain it. You can condense the 5 elements devil subduing seal, which is much stronger than my thick earth devil subduing seal when dealing with devil cultivators. Therefore I would like to ask Daoyu for help." Wang Daoyuan pondered for a while and said, "Helping you obtain the true devil blood lotus, what reward can I obtain? Don't tell me that you only have the earth essence. Although the southern wasteland is vast, level 4 earth elemental spiritual veins are not as common as cabbages. If he searched one by one he would definitely find them. Getting the information from you will only save me some time. I don't lack time, and the earth essence won't hinder me from forming my gold core. I can find it whenever I want." It was not worth risking his life for such a piece of information. Moreover, you haven't mentioned the strength of these demonic cultivators. If by any chance there is a golden core devil cultivator, my life will be gone. Loose cultivator Flying Sand smiled apologetically. "Naturally, it's impossible to only have information about the earth essence. I can give a portion of the true devil blood lotus to Daoyu. In addition, although Daoyu's 5 elements devil subduing seal is powerful, it has very few transformations. The 5 elements devil smiting seal you've obtained should be an inheritance left behind by venerable devil smiting in his early years, or an incomplete one. The inheritance I received was left behind by him in his later years. In addition to the most basic sacrificial refining method, there were also the experiences that Master Devil Vanquishing Demon had gained over the past several hundred years. He had also created some spells that could be used together with the magic tool. If Daoyu obtained these things, his strength would definitely advance by leaps and bounds. With Daoyu's talent, he would be able to create even more powerful spells in the future. However, that would require several hundred years of exploration. With Venerable Devil Vanquishing Demon's inheritance, he would be able to save several hundred years of time. The information about the earth essence could only save him a few dozen years of time. Daoyu didn't care about it. This inheritance could save Daoyu a few hundred years of time. How could Daoyu not care about it? As for the devil cultivators, Daoyu hadn't been in the southern wasteland for long, so he might not know much about them. Golden core devil cultivators would definitely not reveal themselves easily. As long as a golden core devil cultivator appeared, the Divine Weapon Pavilion and the Tai Sword sect would send experts to eliminate them. According to the ancient legends, the 4 top forces were left behind by the ancient Almighty to guard the 4 directions and protect the human race. The mission of the Divine Weapon Pavilion and the Tai Sword sect was to suppress the devil race and devil cultivators in the southern wasteland. Golden core devil cultivators would not dare to reveal themselves casually. The 5 elements devil smiting seal was created to suppress devil cultivators. With Daoyu's devil smiting seal, even I wouldn't be able to defeat it easily. No devil cultivator below the golden core realm would be able to defeat Daoyu's devil smiting seal. This true devil blood lotus is a heavenly treasure for Zifu realm cultivators like us. To golden core devil cultivators, it's just a slightly stronger supplementary spiritual item for body refinement. There's no need for them to risk their lives for such a useless item. Hearing this, Wang Daoyuan was tempted. When a cultivator refined a destiny dermic artifact, it was not as simple as nurturing it. It also needed to be improved continuously. The inheritance that perfected devil smiting master had left behind in his later years was naturally more advanced than the one in his hands. Just based on this point alone, Wang Daoyuan could not refuse. Furthermore, the 5 elements devil smiting seal inheritance that he had received was incomplete. Although his master had helped to restore it, his master was not a cultivator with 5 spirit roots. The 5 elements devil smiting seal that he had restored might not be the most suitable for him. It was inevitable that he would have to improve it in the future. Perfected Devil Smiting Master's insights would be of great help in modifying the 5 elements Devil Smiting seal in the future. Not to mention those dermic arts that could rapidly increase one's strength. As long as a golden core devil cultivator did not attack, it would not be a problem to protect his life. Without any danger to his life and with such a generous reward, it was worth a gamble. Wang Daoyuan asked, I can't refuse Daoyu's offer. I'll agree to it. May I know when the true demonic blood lotus will mature? Since Wang Daoyuan agreed to it, Loose Cultivator Flying Sand's face was also full of joy. He quickly said, the true demonic blood lotus will mature in about 30 years. Daoyu's talent is extraordinary and he doesn't lack resources. It's not impossible for his cultivation to advance further in 30 years. At that time, I'm afraid that no one below the golden core stage will be a match for Daoyu. With a sufficient supply of purple rhyme pills in 30 years, there was indeed a chance for him to cultivate to the late stage of the Zifu realm. If he could find a metal attribute spirit fire, his cultivation speed would be even faster, and his cultivation might even approach the peak stage of the Zifu realm. However, one must always give a deposit when doing business. He asked with a smile, I'll agree to this business, but Daoyu can't just make empty promises, right? If you want me to work, you have to give me some benefits. Why don't you tell me the location of the earth essence first? After I refine the seal of Kirin, my strength will increase greatly, and I'll have more confidence in dealing with devil cultivators. Loose Cultivator Flying Sand looked at him with a fake smile. Daoyu, do you think I'm an idiot? I've run amok in Mingsha Plain for hundreds of years. What kind of tricks haven't I seen? Daoyu, want to fool me? You're still lacking. The seal of Kirin is the core of the 5 elements devil subduing seal. If Daoyu refined the seal of Kirin, he wouldn't even need the 5 elements devil subduing seal to take me down easily. If he used the 5 elements devil subduing seal, I'm afraid my talisman treasure would only be able to heavily injure you and not take your life. At that time, my life would be in your hands. Daoyu can take all the benefits for yourself after taking my soul search. Why would you still need to cooperate with me? However, I can give you the deposit. It just so happens that Daoyu's White Tiger Blade is extremely powerful. I can give you the complete White Tiger Blade refinement technique and the technique. However, Daoyu can't take the benefits for free. My chi and blood have already started to decline rapidly. If I don't have any spiritual items to suppress it, I might not be able to form a golden core even if I obtain the true devil blood lotus 30 years later. You're Taoist Lei Yan's disciple and also an alchemist. It shouldn't be hard for you to get some rank 3 spiritual items that can replenish chi and blood. Give me 50 blood essence pills, and I'll give you all the inheritance of the White Tiger Blade. Blood essence pills were rank 3 middle grade pills. Wang Daoyuan had seen them before. Back then, Taoist Lei Yan gave Zhao Liang a few to build his foundation. This thing had an extremely powerful ability to replenish chi and blood. It was also very useful for Zifu realm cultivators. He could refine it himself now, but he just needed to kill some demonic beasts and extract their blood essence. Wang Daoyuan still bargained, at most 30 pills. Searching for the materials will waste a lot of time and delay my cultivation. Loose Cultivator Flying Sand pondered for a moment and nodded. Chapter 449. Seeing that Flying Sand Wanderer agreed, Wang Daoyuan threw a communication jade talisman to him. I don't have any ready-made pills on hand, nor do I have enough materials. When I get the blood essence pill, I'll send you a message. This communication jade talisman can receive messages within 20,000 miles. Flying Sand Wanderer took the talisman and left. He had been doing business for a few hundred years and had too many enemies. Now he didn't have much spiritual power left, his natal magic tool was damaged and he was injured. If he continued to stay here, his life would be in danger if he encountered an enemy. Wang Daoyuan returned to the small valley of the Huang Jagged Mountain and sealed the cave before returning to the Singing Sand Market. He didn't return to the Clear River Tavern, but to the Divine Weapon Pavilion. Yuanqing saw that he was heavily injured and hurriedly brought him to the backyard of the store, to his own cave. He took out a bottle of Sweet Rain Jade pills for Wang Daoyuan and asked, Junior Marshal Brother Daoyuan, who injured you so heavily? I'll send a message to Master and ask him to send a few people to help you vent your anger. Wang Daoyuan waved his hand and said, Senior Marshal Brother, you don't have to do this. I was forced to become a son-in-law. I didn't agree, so I fought with them. My skills were inferior and I was at a disadvantage. Actually, I didn't suffer heavy injuries, but I used too much spiritual power. This injury was caused by the damage to my natal magic tool, so it's not that serious. Hearing this, Yuanqing was relieved and joked, Junior Marshall Brothers' luck with women is not bad. You've only been in the southern wasteland for a few days and you've already gotten into trouble. There are very few women in the southern wasteland. You have a daughter who can't get married? Which family is recruiting a son-in-law? Wang Daoyuan also replied with a smile, the leader of the Flying Sand Bandits, Flying Sand Wanderer. He's not weak at all. I tried my best but I still couldn't take him down. He Yuanqing couldn't believe it. Flying Sand Wanderer is a peak Zifu realm cultivator. He has a flying sand gourd which he used in the Singing Sand Plain. Yellow sand gourd can also be used with his natal magic tool. Even the peak Zifu realm wanderer Wild Sand Wanderer is not his match. You've offended him, you won't have a good time in the future. I'm not strong enough to help you vent your anger. It's better to find someone to teach him a lesson. Wang Daoyuan naturally didn't need him to call for help, so he refused. Senior Marshal Brother, you don't have to do this. I didn't win against him, but he also suffered some injuries. After he found out about my identity, he reconciled with me. Now I've made a deal with him. I'll give him 30 essence blood pills in exchange for some of Venerable Devil Vanquishing's legacies. I don't have any ready-made pills in my hands, and I can't buy any supplementary medicines in the Singing Sand Market either. He could only ask his senior brother to help him find it. Auxiliary herbs and ready-made blood essence pills were fine. I'm currently injured, and my natal Dharma artifact is also heavily damaged. It's not safe to stay anywhere else, so I'll stay here to recuperate. He Yuanqing smiled and said, 30 blood essence pills are a small matter. I'll talk to a few senior brothers I'm familiar with and they'll be here soon. As for the Immortals' Cave, it doesn't matter. We're all fellow disciples, so we naturally have to help each other. You just stay here and recuperate. I'm busy, so I don't need this cave. I'll go and contact them about the blood essence pill. You take care of your injuries. After saying that, he left the Immortals' Cave. 10 days later, Wang Daoyuan's injuries were completely healed. He Yuanqing also came to the Immortals' Cave with 7 pill bottles and said, Junior brother, I found the blood essence pills you wanted. Wang Daoyuan took the pill bottles and asked, how many spirit stones did you spend? We're blood brothers and you still have a group of juniors to feed. I can't let you suffer losses when I ask for your help. He Yuanqing replied, it's not that I'm being courteous, but this blood essence pill was given to me by my master. I didn't have to pay a single spirit stone. When my master heard that you were injured, he wanted to come over and kill Flying Sand Sanren with his own hands. Later, he didn't come after knowing the whole story. He also told me to tell you that the next time you encounter such a situation, you can use the Purple Thunder Evil Punishing Token to kill him. Master still has more of these things, so you can go and get more when you're done. I still have things to deal with in the shop, so I won't accompany you. Wang Daoyuan wasn't in a hurry to send a message to Flying Sand Sanren. Instead, he continued to stay in He Yuanqing's Immortals' Cave to nurture his magic tools. 2 months later, the White Tiger Blade and Black Tortoise Shield were repaired. He sent a message to Flying Sand Sanren, asking him to meet him at Huang Jagged Mountain. Before leaving, he left He Yuanqing a bottle of Meridian Shielding pills. No matter how good their relationship was, he couldn't let him help for free. Riding his sword, he swaggered out of Singing Sand Market and arrived at Huang Jagged Mountain. Flying Sand Sanren was even more proactive than him. He was already waiting in the small valley. Seeing Wang Daoyuan coming, he quickly greeted him. Wang Daoyuan took out 3 pill bottles and said, the blood essence pills you wanted are all here. Where's the thing I wanted? Flying Sand Sanren took out 4 animal skin pages and threw one of them to Wang Daoyuan. It's all here. Take a look and see if it's real or not. Wang Daoyuan took the animal skin page and poured his divine sense into it. This animal skin page was the refining method for the White Tiger Blade. Compared to Wang Daoyuan's current White Tiger Blade, the shape of the White Tiger Blade wasn't much different. However, there were still many improvements in the tool pattern. It was very obvious that they were of the same origin. Since there was no problem with the item, Wang Daoyuan threw the 3 pill bottles to Flying Sand Sanren. Soon after, Flying Sand Sanren threw the remaining 3 animal skin pages to Wang Daoyuan. Daoyu is indeed trustworthy. This old man still has a lot of things to arrange, so I won't keep you company. Daoyu, please don't forget about the matter of the true demonic blood lotus 30 years later. Finishing his words, he left this place and headed east. Wang Daoyuan also returned to Singing Sand Market. How could he let go of the new inheritance he had obtained? Among these 4 animal skin pages, other than the one that recorded the refining method, the other 3 pages recorded the White Tiger Sword art and the sword cultivation technique. The White Tiger Sword art included the sword controlling technique, the basic offensive and defensive techniques, as well as the method to comprehend the white tiger sword intent. There were also many improvements in these things. Cultivating this new white tiger sword art could actually increase one's strength. Although Venerable Fu Mo created the white tiger blade, he could be considered a very strong sword cultivator. However, he was the same as Wang Daoyuan. He didn't believe that a single sword could break 10,000 techniques, so he didn't plan to major in the sword Dao. Otherwise, he wouldn't have used the Kirin seal as the core of the 5 elements Fu Mo seal. Therefore, Venerable Fu Mo didn't pay much attention to the white tiger blade. There were only 2 sword cultivation techniques. One of them was the shadow sword art that Wang Daoyuan had seen before. Back then, during the duel between the Netherworld sect and the Cruel Sun Palace, Lei Wudao used the shadow sword art to block Daoyu's hundreds of feather blades. The shadow sword art was the most advanced sword cultivation technique he had ever seen. However, Wang Daoyuan wasn't very interested in this technique. Although the shadow sword art was strong, it required one to visualize 10 famous ancient swords and comprehend their charm to resonate with them. Only then could one unleash their full strength. It took so much effort to comprehend the charm of the white tiger blade. He had a lot of things to do. How could he have the time to comprehend 10 famous ancient swords? Venerable Fu Mo's thoughts were exactly the same as Wang Daoyuan's. He couldn't be bothered to visualize the famous ancient swords. Instead, he created another sword cultivation technique based on the shadow sword art. The method of casting this technique wasn't much different from the shadow sword art. It was just that the visualization diagram had been changed. The modified technique was called the Sword Shadow Divine Light Technique. The Sword Shadow Divine Light Technique didn't require one to visualize the famous ancient swords. One only needed to combine one sword intent to condense 10 illusions of the white tiger blade. These illusions were like clones of the white tiger blade. They possessed part of the white tiger blade's power and could be used to attack and defend. They could also cast simple sword cultivation techniques. The power of the illusions depended on the strength of the cultivator's sword intent. This technique was extremely suitable for Wang Daoyuan. He didn't need to spend too much time to master it. The biggest flaw of the Sword Shadow Divine Light technique was that it consumed too much spirit energy. To Wang Daoyuan, this wasn't a flaw at all. With enough spirit wine, he didn't need to worry about how much spirit energy he consumed. Moreover, Venerable Fu Mo had also suggested some ideas. The 10 illusions of the white tiger blade could be combined into a sword formation to unleash even greater power. However, he was busy in his later years looking for treasures and trying to form Yuanying. He didn't continue to study it in depth. Chapter 450. Sword formations were one of the most powerful Dharma spells among sword cultivators. Sword cultivators who specialized in sword formations usually had a set of magic long swords that complemented their natal magic tools. However, sword formations were rarely passed down. Apart from refining the natal magic tool, he also had to spend a large amount of time and energy to nurture the set of magic tools. Therefore, he didn't plan to cultivate sword formations. Now that he had Venerable Devil Vanquishing Demon's Sword Shadow Divine Light art, he could use the white tiger blade to unleash sword formations. If he could obtain a suitable sword formation inheritance, he could cultivate it. It wasn't suitable for him to cultivate in the Clear River Tavern's wing. However, it wasn't a big problem to only condense sword shadows without attacking. He took out 2 sets of formation discs and placed them in the room. These 2 sets of formation discs were a soundproof formation and a spirit-forbidding formation that could prevent spiritual awareness from probing. This Sword Shadow Divine Light art was indeed something passed down by an ancient powerhouse. Although it might have been damaged, repaired, and modified countless times, its foundation was still very solid. Wang Daoyuan used half a month to successfully condense the white tiger blade sword shadows. However, although his sword shadows had the appearance of the white tiger blade, they were still very illusory. One could tell at a glance that they weren't real. He couldn't test their power for now. He would give it a try the next time he went out. He didn't cultivate the newly obtained white tiger sword art. He also didn't modify the tool patterns of the white tiger blade according to the newly obtained refining method. Venerable Flying Sand wasn't a trustworthy person. Who knew if he would leave any tricks in the inheritance? The current refining method of the white tiger blade and white tiger sword art had been checked by his master and confirmed that there were no problems. There was no need to take the risk of being killed by others just to increase the power of the white tiger blade. The newly obtained inheritance could only be cultivated in addition to the accompanying arts. The other things could only be used as a reference to improve the 5 elements devil vanquishing seal in the future. Wang Daoyuan continued to stay in the Clear River Tavern. Apart from cultivating, he also inquired about the situation of the sandstorm. There wasn't any earth essence here. The only thing he was looking for was the Earth attribute natal feather. The Earth attribute demonic bird was extremely rare. There might be individuals with natal feather among the sand-chasing hawks. Naturally, he couldn't let them go. The information obtained from Know-It-All was still too rough. It only recorded the topography, products, and forces of various places, but it did not record where sandstorms were prone to occur. After asking around in the Clear River Tower for a period of time, he found out that the place where sandstorms most frequently occurred in the Singing Sand Plains was the Singing Sand Ridge at the edge of the Wild Sand Bandits area of activity. The sandstorm on the Singing Sand Ridge was incessant. The sound of the sandstorm could be heard day and night. Therefore it was named the Singing Sand Ridge. The name of the Singing Sand Plain also came from the Singing Sand Ridge. After getting this information, Wang Daoyuan rode the Heaven Fiend Life Extinction Sword and left the Singing Sand Market, heading towards the Singing Sand Ridge that was 10,000 miles southwest. When they were still more than 100 miles away from the Singing Sand Ridge, they could already hear the sound of wind howling like the wailing of ghosts. When they got closer, they could hear the sound of sand hitting each other. The name Singing Sand Ridge was indeed very appropriate. As far as the eye could see, the Singing Sand Ridge was like a yellow dragon that was meandering in the southwest direction. At this time, more than 300 miles south of Wang Daoyuan, there was a sandstorm moving from west to east. Where there was a sandstorm, there would definitely be traces of sand-chasing harriers. He rode his sword towards the south. After arriving behind the sandstorm, he did find a few sand-chasing harriers. However, these sand-chasing harriers were all third-level lower grade and did not have a life source feather. Wang Daoyuan did not go forward to chase them away. He only maintained a distance of about 50 miles from the sandstorm. At this distance, he could observe the situation of the sandstorm with his divine sense. If new sand-chasing harriers joined in, he would be able to discover them at any time. As time passed, the sand-chasing harriers behind the sandstorm continuously cast Earth attribute magic, pushing the sandstorm forward. The scale of the sandstorm also became bigger and bigger. The bigger the sandstorm, the more sand-chasing harriers would be attracted. With more sand-chasing harriers, the scale of the sandstorm would also become bigger. In this way, just like a rolling snowball, the sandstorm would continue to grow bigger. Unless there was a tall mountain blocking the way, the entire sandstorm would sweep all the way through. All the plants along the way, as well as the spiritual beasts and spiritual insects that did not escape in time, would be swallowed by the sandstorm and become the sand-chasing harriers' delicacies. The sand-chasing harriers played an important role in Mingsha Plain's current scale of tens of thousands of miles. Wang Daoyuan followed the sandstorm for a day. The road ahead was smooth and the sandstorm would continue to advance for a long time. Along the way, more sand-chasing harriers joined in. Now there were already more than 50 sand-chasing harriers behind the sandstorm. However, these sand-chasing harriers did not have a life source feather. Suddenly, from the south of the sandstorm, a third-level middle-grade sand-chasing harrier flew over. This fella's wingspan was 20 feet, far exceeding that of an ordinary sand-chasing harrier. Most importantly, this fella had a few feathers on its head. The longest feather was 1 foot long and 5 to 6 inches long. Other sand-chasing harriers also had feathers on their heads, but they were relatively short, only 2 to 3 inches long. This fella had such a long feather on its head, so it was very likely to have a life source feather. Wang Daoyuan closed the distance between him and the sand-chasing harrier, and his divine sense observed it more clearly. This feather contained rich earth attribute spiritual energy, and when this sand-chasing harrier cast its innate magic, the spiritual energy fluctuations in the feather were obviously strengthened. This was the characteristic of a life source feather. The third life source feather was about to be in his hands. As for these sand-chasing harriers, they were a group of earth attribute demonic birds. Their attack power and speed were terrible and they were not a threat to his life. He tried his best to suppress his spiritual energy fluctuations, took out the soul-restricting silk cloak, put it on, and slowly approached the demonic birds. This group of sand-chasing harriers were all focused on finding food in the sandstorm, and did not pay attention to the danger behind them. Soon Wang Daoyuan was within 10 miles of the sand-chasing harriers. After all, the sand-chasing harriers were a type of bird of prey, and they had to pick out food in the sandstorm, so their eyesight was naturally good. One of the sand-chasing harriers happened to turn around and discovered Wang Daoyuan. It let out a sharp cry, and the other sand-chasing harriers also discovered his existence, and immediately surrounded him. Wang Daoyuan took out the flaming wind kite. The sand-chasing harriers were not fast enough, but riding the flaming wind kite, his speed was far faster than them. He led the group of sand-chasing harriers in circles in the air. With a group of sand-chasing harriers gathered together, it was not good for him to turn around and kill the target. Fortunately, these guys were ferocious beasts and not demonic beasts, and their intelligence was low. Wang Daoyuan released hundreds of soul-chasing bees to lure them out. As expected, the sand-chasing harriers fell for it, and most of them went to chase after the soul-chasing bees. Only the middle grade 3 sand-chasing harrier and a few low grade 3 sand-chasing harriers were still chasing after him. The opportunity was here. Wang Daoyuan suddenly turned around and attacked the target with the white tiger blade. The middle grade 3 sand-chasing harrier did not even have time to react before its neck was cut off. Just as Wang Daoyuan was about to retrieve the sand-chasing harrier's corpse, a cold wind blew over, and a yellow figure flashed by and snatched the sand-chasing harrier's corpse. This person was not old, only a little over 100 years old, and had a cultivation of middle-stage Violet Palace realm. Before he left, he arrogantly shouted, "Thank you, Daoyu, for the treasure." Wang Daoyuan rode the windfire flying kite and chased after him. He angrily said, "Hand over your natal feather now and I'll spare your life." The person disdainfully said, "Once it's in my hands, it's mine. In this Mingsha plain, no one has ever dared to threaten me like this." Wang Daoyuan was already burning with rage at this time. He angrily shouted, "No matter who you are, you'll die for daring to intercept me. Even if you're a Golden Core direct disciple, you'll still die." This guy was also a wind attribute cultivator, and he was riding on a flying boat like flying magic tool. Its speed was not slower than the windfire flying kite, and Wang Daoyuan could not catch up to him in a short time. The two of them, one chasing and one fleeing, quickly flew over 1,000 miles to the west. An extremely intimidating roar was heard. "Who dares to bully my only son in this old man's territory?" Chapter 451. Wang Daoyuan scanned with his spiritual sense and discovered that this person was a peak Zifu realm cultivator. Since this was his territory, then this person should be the leader of the Wild Sand Bandits, the Wild Sand Vagabond. The cultivators of Mingsha Plain publicly acknowledged that Wanderer Wild Sand's strength was weaker than Wanderer Flying Sand's, and Wanderer Flying Sand's strength. Wang Daoyuan naturally wasn't afraid of him, replying, "Your son stole something from me. If you hand it over now, I'll turn around and leave. If you don't hand it over, you won't be able to protect him with your abilities." The Wild Sand Vagabond could also see that Wang Daoyuan was a cultivator from the outside world who had come to gain experience. He wasn't unreasonable, instead asking his son, "Tianyi, what did you steal from him?" Tianyi replied, "Father, I took an Earth-type life-bound feather. With this item, you can refine a magic tool to deal with the Flying Sand Vagabond. Besides, the place where he hunts is our territory. It's clear that he wants to steal from us." Hearing that his son had obtained an Earth-type life-bound feather, the Wild Sand Vagabond's expression immediately changed. He cupped his hands towards Wang Daoyuan saying, "Daoyu, I indeed need this item. Besides, Daoyu hunted in my territory. Naturally, I also have a share of the prey that he obtained. How about this? I'll compensate you with some spirit stones and we'll let this matter rest." Wang Daoyuan sneered, "What a coincidence, I also need this life-bound feather. Sir, you're not a hothead in Mingsha Plains. You should know that there are some people you can't afford to offend. Don't throw away your hundreds of years of foundation just for a life-bound feather." Wang Daoyuan still had some self-awareness. Last time, when he fought the Flying Sand Vagabond, he was able to exchange blows with him because he was willing to drink spiritual wine. If he didn't rely on resources, his strength would still be inferior to these vagabonds. Right now, he really wasn't a match for the father and son duo. This was also the territory of the Wild Sand Bandits. Once they got tangled up, it would be very easy for them to gang up on him. It would be best to directly scare the Wild Sand Vagabond into handing over the Earth-type life-bound feather and settle this peacefully. He took out the Purple Lightning Vanquishing Order and said, "Once this item is activated, no one below the Golden Core stage can escape. Hand over the natal feather. Otherwise both you and your father will die here." Vagabond Wild Sand laughed, "Daoyu really isn't an ordinary person. You should be a Jindan direct disciple. If you want to scare me with this thing, you're still lacking." Then he took out a yellow circular token with a diameter of about 3 inches. This was also a talisman treasure, but its spiritual energy fluctuation was much weaker than Flying Sand Wanderers. Its might was much stronger than the full force strike of a peak Violet Palace realm cultivator, but it was still far inferior to the full force strike of an initial stage Golden Core realm cultivator. It was probably because it had been used many times and did not have much spiritual energy left. Even so, he still had the ability to kill Wang Daoyuan instantly. The purple lightning evil punishing token only had the ability to attack and had no defensive abilities. Although he could kill Wanderer Wildzan and his son in a head-on clash, it would be difficult for him to escape death. Although the Earth attribute Natal Tail Feather was precious, it was not to the point where he would trade his life for it. Wang Daoyuan laughed. Although this talisman treasure isn't strong, it can indeed kill me. Since Dao Yu wants to renege on my things, then be prepared to lose your several hundred years of foundation. Before he finished speaking, he urged the firestorm flying kite to escape. A wise man does not fight when the odds are against him. If he could not take them down, he would have to ask for help. Of course, there was no need to ask for help from the Divine Weapon Pavilion. The Flying Sand Bandits were excellent helpers. Fleeing east to Huangjiaga Mountain, he sent a message to Vagabond Flying Sand, wanting to discuss a big business deal with him. Vagabond Flying Sand naturally knew that Wang Daoyuan's big business deal was absolutely not a small matter. He hurriedly rushed to Huangjiaga Mountain. After seeing Wang Daoyuan, he hurriedly asked, "What kind of business does Dao Yu want to do?" Wang Daoyuan directly threw out the bait. "Do you want to kill Vagabond Wild Sand and annex the Wild Sand Bandits?" Hearing this, Vagabond Flying Sand's eyes stared straight. "I've been thinking about it for several hundred years. Ever since I opened the Violet Palace, I've always been at odds with Vagabond Wild Sand. Although I'm stronger than him, this old guy also has some trump cards. I also don't dare to fight him head-on so as to avoid both sides suffering." "What, did he offend you?" Wang Daoyuan did not hide it and replied, "His son stole something from me. When I went to ask for it, he took out a talisman treasure to threaten me. There was no need for me to risk my life with him, so I withdrew. That talisman treasure of his isn't much. With the two of us working together, relying on the power of the evil subduing seal and the thick earth evil suppressing seal, it shouldn't be a problem to take it head-on. At that time he'll be meat on the chopping board. Won't he be at our mercy? I won't stay in Mingsha Plain for a long time. Exterminating the Wild Sand Bandits is just to take back the things that were stolen and some rare spirit items. Wealth, territory and manpower, won't they all fall into your hands?" Vagabond Flying Sand was moved. He wanted to exterminate the Wild Sand Bandits and had thought about it for several hundred years. He originally wanted to wait until he formed his golden core before dealing with this great enemy. But how could forming his golden core be that easy? Even if he obtained the true Devil Blood Lotus, he might not be able to condense the embryonic form of his golden core. Even if he passed this hurdle, he would still have to face the golden core heavenly tribulation. Most of the cultivators who failed to form their golden core were struck to death by the golden core heavenly tribulation. Now, he didn't need to gamble on the success of forming his golden core and had the opportunity to fulfill his long-cherished wish of several hundred years. How could he not be moved? He pondered for a long time and nodded, "I'm willing to do this. It's just that this Vagabond Wild Sand's strength isn't weak. His lair also has a low-grade Tier 4 array. Although it's just an array disk, we don't have the ability to break it. After a long time, even if we can take down the Wild Sand Bandits, we'll suffer heavy losses. Mingsha Plain isn't just limited to our two forces. There are also several small forces in the south. If the casualties are too great, others will take advantage of it. At that time, I won't even be able to protect my original territory." His apprehension was actually reasonable. Vagabond Wild Sands and Vagabond Flying Sands forces were about the same. Even if Wang Daoyuan was added, they still wouldn't be able to win easily. Wang Daoyuan asked, "There are several bandit groups in this Mingsha Plain. Who can you and Vagabond Wild Sand rope in?" Vagabond Flying Sand sneered, "Rope in my ass. Usually I can't wait to kill my opponents. How can I rope in anyone? The bandits in Mingsha Plain are all one family. They all have blood feuds with each other. There's basically no possibility of cooperation." Wang Daoyuan said helplessly, "Don't you know that harmony breeds wealth? If you offend everyone, aren't you afraid that the other bandit groups will join hands to deal with you?" Vagabond Flying Sand didn't care. "Everyone is like this. They all want to kill each other. I've never heard of any bandit groups cooperating. This group of bandits weren't any good people. If they cooperated, they'd only be messing with each other. They might as well do it alone." He sighed and said, "Since roping in a few to fight one isn't reliable, then we can only use the decapitation tactic. How about this? You bring a few experts and follow me to the Wild Sand Bandits' territory to set up an ambush. I'll go provoke the Wild Sand Bandits. As long as they show themselves, I'll kill a few for fun. I'll force the Vagabond Wild Sand out, then you guys come out and surround him. As long as we kill the Vagabond Wild Sand, the Wild Sand Bandits will be leaderless. Swallowing them will be a piece of cake." Vagabond Flying Sand nodded and said, "Your method isn't bad. We can give it a try. However, I'm still afraid that you'll cooperate with the Vagabond Wild Sand to plot against me." Wang Daoyuan sneered, "My master already knows about the matter of you fighting with me last time. If I hadn't persuaded him, he would have personally come to slap you to death. If I wanted to kill you, would I need to plot against you? Or do you think that talisman of yours can threaten my master?" Hearing these words, Vagabond Flying Sand broke out in cold sweat. Venerable Lei Yan's strength was at the peak of the half-step Yuanying realm. Fortunately, they had reconciled last time. Otherwise, if Venerable Lei Yan personally came, his lair's low-grade Tier 4 array would be just a piece of paper in front of him. The talisman treasure that he treated as his lifeblood could be destroyed with a puff of air. He hurriedly said, "I'm sincerely cooperating with you. You must not let Venerable Lei Yan take care of me. Regarding the matter of dealing with the Wild Sand Bandits, we'll do as you say. I'll go back and gather people. Let's deal with the Vagabond Wild Sand together." Chapter 452. Flying Sand left this place. Half a day later he arrived on a flying boat. Aside from Flying Sand, there were also 5 Zifu disciples on the flying boat. 2 of them were late-stage Zifu disciples and 3 were middle-stage Zifu disciples. The 6 of them disembarked from the flying boat. Flying Sand put away the flying boat and laughed. "Wang Daoyu, these 5 brothers are my strongest subordinates in terms of fighting ability. With the 2 of us here, it won't take much effort to take down Wild Sand." Wang Daoyuan nodded, "We have enough manpower. You have fought with the Wild Sand Bandits for hundreds of years. You should understand their situation very well. Where should we ambush Wild Sand?" Flying Sand said without hesitation, "Definitely to the north of Wind-Fixing Mountain. Wind-Fixing Mountain is more than 2,000 li north of Singing Sand Ridge. It is a tall mountain that blocks the sandstorms. North of the mountain there are no sandstorms. Wind-Fixing Mountain also has a high-level 3rd-grade non-elemental spirit vein. Its spiritual energy is also very abundant. There are many springs on the mountain, forming the Mountain Oasis. It is one of the few places in Singing Sand Plains that has large amounts of spirit plants. Plus, there are many ores in Wind-Fixing Mountain, so there are many cultivators who go there to hunt. The Wild Sand Bandits also attach great importance to the Mountain Oasis. They have 2 or 3 Zifu disciples stationed there for a long time. In Singing Sand Plains, the Wild Sand Bandits have a much better reputation than us Flying Sand Bandits. This is because they control the Mountain Oasis. They don't need to rob too many loose cultivators to have enough resources. If not for this, how could Wild Sand Bandits contend against me? As long as we make a move on the Mountain Oasis, that old man Wild Sand Bandits will be in a dilemma. If we ignore him, the Wild Sand Bandits' greatest source of income will be gone. This old man is willing to sacrifice his life over his wealth. Even if he knows it is a trap, he won't easily give up on the Mountain Oasis. Wang Daoyuan was deeply moved by Wild Sand Bandits' willingness to sacrifice his life over his wealth. He took out the Purple Thunder Punishing Evil Writ, which clearly showed that he had a Jin Dan backer. He clearly knew that he was not someone to be trifled with, but still, for an Earth-type life-bound feather, he had incurred enmity with him. Wang Daoyuan nodded, "Daoyu is right. This Wild Sand Bandit's willingness to sacrifice his life over his wealth. I don't know much about the Shanin Oasis, so I don't know how to make a move. You should be the one to plan what to do." Loose Practitioner Flying Sand said with a smile, "If that's the case, then many thanks to Daoyu for your trust. I've wanted to take down the Shanin Oasis for a long time, and I've been investigating the oasis for years. However, this Mountain Oasis is too close to the Wild Sand Bandits' lair, and I don't have the advantage in terms of manpower, so I didn't dare to make a move. We can disguise ourselves as rogue cultivators and enter the Mountain Oasis. All that's left is to kill and cause trouble. However, only Wang Daoyu can do this. If we make a move, we will be recognized by the Wild Sand Bandits. That old bastard, Loose Sandstorm, will definitely bring all of his Zifu disciples to fight me to the death. By then we'll be in danger." Daoyu, in the name of revenge, had gone to kill a Zifu disciple of the Wild Sand Bandits. That old bastard Vagrant Wild Sand wouldn't have brought too many people with him. Only then would we have a chance to kill him. This plan was similar to Wang Daoyuan's idea, so he naturally had no objections. Everyone split up, disguising themselves and entering the Mountain Oasis one after another. Wang Daoyuan suppressed his power to the early Zifu disciple level, then entered the oasis on his sword. From afar he could see more than 10 rivers, large and small, flowing north from Wind-Calming Mountain. The oasis was located on both sides of these rivers. The further downstream one went, the less river water there was. Finally, it dried up and the oasis disappeared. The entire oasis was roughly 300 kilometers wide from east to west, and the length of the river from north to south was related to the length of the river. The longest was 2,000 kilometers, while the shortest was 1,000 kilometers. This oasis couldn't be considered very large, but the wild sand bandits didn't have the ability to carefully manage it, and so they treated the rogue cultivators like sheep. Foundation establishment cultivators would monitor the entire oasis from above. When they discovered that any rogue cultivator had made a great harvest, they would notify the Zifu disciples stationed here, who would then go and collect some of the treasures. After Wang Daoyuan entered the oasis, he had originally wanted to find some valuable spiritual type items. Unfortunately, the spiritual type plants here were only of the middle or low-grade second rank. The wild sand bandits were careless in their management, and the high-grade spiritual type plants they had were all snatched away by the rogue cultivators. The rogue cultivators who came here to try their luck didn't aim for spiritual type plants, but for ores and ferocious beasts. There were quite a few stones in the riverbed that had been washed down from Wind-Calming Mountain. It was very likely that there were refining materials hidden inside. The environment of the Wind-Calming Mountain oasis was considered excellent in the entire Songsha Plains. Ferocious beasts from other places always liked to run here. Because of this, although there were many cultivators hunting here, they didn't kill all the ferocious beasts. Wang Daoyuan didn't have much interest in the ferocious beasts, so he found a large river and flew close to the river's surface to see if he could find any rare refining materials. He didn't want to find trouble, but trouble came knocking on his door. While he was honestly searching for refining materials in the river, a spider with a diameter of 1 foot jumped down from a large tree on the shore and pounced towards Wang Daoyuan. This spider was a low-grade third-rank spiritual type insect. The color of its body was constantly changing. When he used his spiritual sense to observe it, he found that it was faintly discernible. This should be a phantom spirit wolf spider. It could avoid the detection of spiritual sense and change its color according to the surrounding environment. It was extremely poisonous. Wang Daoyuan didn't feel like entangling with it. He took out the soul-extinguishing bell and gently activated it. The phantom spirit wolf spider was stunned for a moment. Underneath Wang Daoyuan's feet, the terminating life sword flashed with a cold light. A sword beam flew out and pierced the phantom spirit wolf spider's head. It didn't even have time to struggle before it died. Wang Daoyuan put its corpse into the space inside his spiritual pearl and continued to search for spiritual items. All of this was seen by the Foundation establishment cultivators who were monitoring this place. Wang Daoyuan also didn't have any intention to hide. After half a cup of tea's time, a middle-stage Zifu realm cultivator flew over on his sword. He blocked Wang Daoyuan's path 1,000 feet away and said with a smile, "Daoyu's harvest isn't small. It's just that this Wind-Calming Mountain oasis is Wanderer Wild Sands territory. Daoyu's harvest here, so we can't just go hungry." Wang Daoyuan said with a smile, "I know the rules." Afterwards, he sent his divine sense into the storage pouch at his waist, acting as if he was looking for something. Seeing that he was so tactful, the middle-stage Zifu realm cultivator relaxed his guard. At this moment, Wang Daoyuan suddenly took out the white tiger blade and attacked him. To a Zifu realm cultivator, a distance of 1,000 feet could be considered very close. The middle-stage Zifu realm cultivator was greatly alarmed and hurriedly took out a silver longsword to block. Unfortunately, how could a hasty attack compare to Wang Daoyuan's long-planned attack? The two swords clashed and the silver longsword was cut into two. The middle-stage Zifu realm cultivator was also given a chance to catch his breath and dodge the white tiger blade. Wang Daoyuan recalled the white tiger blade and held it in a reverse grip. Using the cloud mist evasion, he flew past the middle-stage Zifu realm cultivator. As the two passed by each other, the middle-stage Zifu realm cultivator's terrified expression froze on his face. Afterwards, his head slid down from his body. Only now did he lose control of the flying sword under his feet, and his body fell into the river. The remaining half of the broken sword in his hand was cut in half. Seeing this, the Foundation establishment cultivator in the sky immediately took out a jade talisman and crushed it. Wang Daoyuan put away the long sword under the middle-stage Zifu realm cultivator's feet and the storage pouch on his waist, and threw the broken sword in his hand into the air. The Foundation establishment cultivator who reported the news, just as he crushed the jade talisman, was cut in half by the broken sword. The flying sand bandits hiding in the oasis were also shocked speechless by Wang Daoyuan's methods. Before, when Wang Daoyuan spoke to flying sand vagabond without any courtesy, they were still a bit unconvinced. What right does a middle-stage Zifu realm cultivator have to call their boss Daoyu? If it wasn't for Flying Sand Vagabond repeatedly reminding them before coming here, they would have definitely exchanged a few blows with Wang Daoyuan. Now they were all convinced. Even a late-stage Zifu realm cultivator would have to fight for a long time to kill a middle-stage Zifu realm cultivator. Wang Daoyuan instantly killed a cultivator of the same stage. Although it was a sneak attack without a strength close to the peak of the Zifu realm, it was absolutely impossible to do this. The Foundation establishment wild sand bandits in the sky fled one after another. Wang Daoyuan was also disinclined to chase after them, and directly flew towards the setting wind mountain at the southernmost part of the oasis. The wild sand bandits guarding the mountainine oasis were all at setting wind mountain. He came here to cause trouble, so naturally he would make things worse. Chapter 453. The place where Wang Daoyuan was at was not far from Wind-Fixing Mountain. Very quickly he arrived at the northern foot of Wind-Fixing Mountain. A 3,000-meter tall mountain peak was covered by a defensive formation. This mountain peak was the base of the wild sand bandits in the mountain shade oasis. Within the defensive formation an early-stage Zifu disciple shouted, "We have no enmity with Daoyu in the past. Why did Daoyu kill a member of our wild sand bandits?" Wang Daoyuan used the heaven-cleaving sword, and the white tiger blade transformed into a 300-meter-long greatsword, chopping towards the defensive barrier. Laughing, he said, "Indeed, we had no enmity in the past. But recently we did. The wastrel son of the wild sand vagabond stole something from me. I'm not a match for the wild sand vagabond, so I can only come find you." This defensive formation was a high-grade third-rank formation. Given Wang Daoyuan's power, the chances of him breaking it by force wasn't too high. When the greatsword chopped against the defensive barrier, it was bounced off. His goal was to draw the wild sand vagabond over. It didn't matter if the formation was broken or not. After learning the sword shadow godlight technique, he hadn't had the chance to test out its power. Now was the perfect time to practice. Wang Daoyuan recalled the white tiger blade and used the sword shadow godlight technique, condensing 10 illusory white tiger blades. He controlled these illusory swords to attack the defensive barrier. The illusory swords chopped against the defensive barrier, causing waves of ripples before being bounced off. The illusory swords didn't shatter, only becoming a bit dimmer. The power of these illusory swords was equivalent to 1/10 of the power of the white tiger blade. 10 illusory swords attacking the same place at the same time was equivalent to the power of the white tiger blade. The actual power was perhaps a bit weaker. However, this was already extremely shocking. After all, he was a half-baked sword cultivator. A sword cultivator directly using his life-bound flying sword to attack was already an extremely powerful method of attack. He also had to take the risk of damaging his flying sword and implicating himself. If he used illusory swords to attack now, the power would be about the same. It would be more flexible and there wouldn't be any risk of damaging magic tools. In the future, when he became more proficient in the sword shadow godlight technique and increased his sword intent and white tiger aura, the power of the illusory swords would also increase. Flying Sand Loose practitioner, who was hiding at the side, looked at the 10 sword images and felt extremely shocked. Wang Daoyuan's sword shadow divine light technique was obtained from him. How long had it been? It already had such power. Loose cultivator Flying Sand sent out a middle-stage Zifu disciple to the south of Wind-Setting Mountain to investigate the movements of the wild sand bandits. After a quarter of an hour, Loose cultivator Quicksand sent mentally to Wang Daoyuan, "A middle-grade third-rank flying warship has arrived from the south, as well as 3 Zifu disciples. Unfettered Wilds and was amongst them as well. The other 2 were a late-stage Zifu disciple and a middle-stage Zifu disciple. Daoyu Wang, come up with an idea on how to deal with them." Wang Daoyuan took out a jar of spirit peach dew, drank a few mouthfuls, then replied mentally, 3 Zifu disciples and a warship are equivalent to 4 middle-stage Zifu disciples. You guys are too slow. I'll be the main attacker. You're slightly stronger than Loose Sand Cultivator, so hold him back for now. Our 2 late-stage Zifu disciples will surround and attack the Wild Sand Bandits' late-stage Zifu disciple. The 3 middle-stage Zifu disciples will surround and attack the warship. I'll deal with the enemy's middle-stage Zifu disciple, while at the same time I'll support you. As long as Loose Sand Cultivator uses a talisman treasure, I'll use the 5 Elements Devil Smiting Seal, while you use the Thick Earth Devil Smiting Seal. The 2 of us should be able to take on the talisman treasure head-on. If the early-stage Zifu disciple dares to come out of the formation, I'll deal with him. Let's make things clear first. You'll be the one to deal with the talisman treasure, while I'll support you from the side. I'm all by myself here. If I'm heavily injured, I won't be able to keep my life. I'll use the Violet Thunder Devil Smiting Medallion to deal with Loose Sand Cultivator. After that, I'll use the Azure Dragon Pearl to heal you, then give you 2 doo-doo pills. Your injuries will quickly heal. 10 breaths later, Loose Cultivator Quicksand sent mentally, "We'll do as you say." Half the time it takes to brew a cup of tea passed. From the south, an explosive roar could be heard. Which scoundrel dares to behave so atrociously in my territory? A few breaths later, a 30-meter-long 9-meter-wide flying warship appeared in the air above the mountain-shade oasis. These bandits really were formidable. They even dared to use flying warships. 3 Zifu disciples flew down from the warship on their flying swords. Wang Daoyuan looked at the 3 of them, laughing. "Wild Sand Daoyu, how have you been? You dared to steal from me, so you should be prepared to destroy what you've built up over hundreds of years." After speaking, he flew on his flying sword towards the Crying Sand Market. He had killed a middle-stage Zifu disciple of the Wild Sand Bandits in front of everyone's eyes. If he was able to escape unscathed, then in the future, the Loose Cultivator Quicksand wouldn't have the face to see anyone. The 3 people and the flying warship all chased after Wang Daoyuan. After flying for less than 10 kilometers, a group of people suddenly shot out from the ground, separating the 3 people and the warship. This group of people was the Flying Sand Bandits. Loose Cultivator Quicksand against Loose Cultivator Quicksand. Late-stage Zifu disciple, Loose Cultivator Quicksand against Loose Cultivator Quicksand. Loose Cultivator Quicksand's subordinate, who had been sent to gather information, quickly returned. The 3 middle-stage Zifu disciples surrounded and attacked the flying warship. Wang Daoyuan controlled the firestorm kite, turning around to kill the middle-stage Zifu disciple. The Loose Cultivator Quicksand naturally understood that he had fallen into a trap. He shouted loudly, "Draw close to the defensive formation." Hiding in the array formation was indeed their only way out. Wang Daoyuan's side had an absolute advantage in numbers. How could they let them do as they wished? The Loose Cultivator Quicksand directly took out the flying sand gourd, spitting out yellow sand that filled the sky. The Loose Cultivator Quicksand's technique seemed to be a dual attribute wind and earth. Using a high-level wind attribute technique, he was able to counter the flying sand gourd. The Loose Cultivator Quicksand then took out the thick earth devil suppressing seal. Its suppressive power had a great suppressive effect on wind attribute techniques. The devil suppressing seal and the flying sand gourd complemented each other, and the Loose Cultivator Quicksand quickly fell into a disadvantage. Wang Daoyuan caught up with the middle-stage Zifu disciple of the Wild Sand Bandits. With a wave of the White Tiger Blade, 10 sword shadows attacked. No matter how fast a flying sword was, it was still not faster than a sword cultivator's technique. The middle-stage Zifu disciple had no choice but to take out his natal magic artifact and use his strongest technique to meet Wang Daoyuan's 10 sword shadows head-on. When the 10 sword shadows hit one place, the natal magic artifact was heavily damaged, and the sword shadows also became extremely dim. The White Tiger Blade flew over, cutting the damaged natal magic artifact in half. Along with it, the middle-stage Zifu disciple's body was also cut in half. In just a dozen breaths of time, a middle-stage Zifu disciple had already died in battle. The Loose Cultivator Quicksand's face changed greatly. If this continued, he would not be able to escape. Taking out the Earth Yellow command token, he poured his spiritual sense and spiritual energy into it. The Loose Cultivator Quicksand's face was grave. He quickly merged the yellow sand that filled the sky with the thick Earth Devil suppressing seal, preparing for the final attack. Wang Daoyuan also condensed the 5 elements devil suppressing seal and merged it with the White Tiger Blade and the Black Tortoise Shield. Very quickly, the command token in the Loose Cultivator Quicksand's hand transformed into a shield-shaped magic artifact with a diameter of around 5 feet. This thing was rather similar to Bai Sheng's 9 Spirits White Bone Wheel. The edge of the shield was a sharp blade. This was a magic artifact that could be used for both offense and defense. The 5 elements devil suppressing seal and the thick earth devil suppressing seal simultaneously released a suppressive force, weakening the power of the shield. However, the effect was negligible. The thick earth devil suppressing seal flew towards the shield, while Wang Daoyuan controlled the 5 elements devil suppressing seal to fly above the shield and smash against it. The 3 collided. The thick earth devil suppressing seal met the enemy head-on. The outer layer of yellow sand was directly scattered, and the main body of the seal was also heavily damaged, becoming dim and lightless. The 5 elements devil suppressing seal heavily smashed against the shield, immediately collapsing. Fortunately, the white tiger blade and the black tortoise shield were not damaged. The shield transformed back into a command token, but its spiritual energy was greatly damaged. It would not be able to use it again for a short period of time. When it was used again in the future, it would not have much of its power left. At the place where the three collided, the spiritual plants and earth within a radius of 5 kilometers were instantly reduced to nothingness, leaving behind a 3-meter deep crater. A sound like muffled thunder quickly spread to hundreds of kilometers away. All the ferocious beasts in the oasis frantically fled as if a great calamity was about to befall them. The battle between the late-stage Zifu realm and the middle-stage Zifu realm was also affected by the shockwaves. The cultivators on both sides more or less suffered some injuries. The loose cultivator Quicksand was affected by the life-bound magic artifact. He continuously spat out a few mouthfuls of blood and lay on the ground. His entire aura was in disorder, and there was not a trace of blood on his face. It was obvious that he had suffered extremely heavy injuries. Wang Daoyuan hid far away and was not injured. However, his spiritual energy was greatly consumed, and he did not even have 10% of his remaining spiritual energy. Chapter 454. When the wild sand cultivator first fought with the flying sand cultivator, he used up a part of his spirit energy. After Wang Daoyuan killed the middle-stage Zifu cultivator, he used a talisman treasure to fight. Its power mainly came from the talisman treasure, so he didn't use up much of his spirit energy. Right now, he still has more than half of his spirit energy and divine sense. Summoning his life-bound magic tool sword, he attacked the flying sand cultivator. Wang Daoyuan took out the purple thunder evil decree, while pouring spirit energy into it, his divine sense locked onto the wild sand cultivator. A purple lightning bolt as thick as a person's waist flew out from the purple thunder evil decree. Around the lightning there seems to be a purple flame burning. The wild sand cultivator's face showed a frightened expression. He's also a wily old fox, knowing that he can't take this attack head-on, so he threw out several magic tools to block it. Afterwards he used wind escape to escape far away. This purple lightning is comparable to an all-out attack from an early-stage golden core cultivator. If it's that easy to block, then golden core cultivators wouldn't be worth anything. The magic tool that the wild sand cultivator threw out blocked his back. As the purple lightning flashed, the magic tool was turned into pieces. And the purple lightning itself only lost a bit more than a tenth of its power. The wild sand cultivator's face showed a look of despair. No matter how fast he is, he can't be faster than a golden core cultivator's lightning, so he can only use his life-bound magic tool to block this attack. As the purple lightning flashed, the wild sand cultivator was turned into ashes. His life-bound magic tool was also heavily damaged. The bags of holding around his waist were all burned to ashes. There's only one yin and yang ring left, but it's still intact. To be able to block the purple lightning, it should also be a 4th-stage magic tool. Everyone else was a bit stunned by the power of the purple thunder evil decree, still not able to react. Wang Daoyuan picked up the talisman treasure left behind by the wild sand cultivator, then rode the wind flame flying kite to take the yin and yang ring. After taking the yin and yang ring, he took out a jar of spirit wine, drank a few mouthfuls, then shouted, "The wild sand cultivator is dead. Those who surrender will be spared. Those who resist will be killed without mercy." He still has the purple thunder evil decree in his hand, so the others don't dare to disobey him, so they all stopped fighting. Wang Daoyuan came next to the flying sand cultivator, gathering spirit energy in his hand. Everyone was a little afraid that he would directly kill Flying Sand Wanderer. Even Flying Sand Loose Cultivator was somewhat afraid. The talisman treasure was already in his hand. When he saw the Azure Dragon Pearl in Wang Daoyuan's hand, he relaxed. However, he didn't put away the talisman treasure in his hand. The Tsang Dragon Orb emitted a green light. Although it didn't extract life force, his wood elemental spiritual power also contained some life force, so the healing effect wasn't bad. Loose Cultivator Flying Sand's injuries had clearly improved. Wang Daoyuan took out 2 more Sweet Rain Jade Dew pills and gave them to him. Only then did the others relax. Flying Sand Loose Practitioner immediately took a Sweet Rain Jade Dew pill, sat down on the spot and began to heal. Wang Daoyuan didn't stand on ceremony with him, and claimed ownership of the Chengquan ring left behind by the Wild Sand Wanderer. He probed into the interspatial ring with his divine sense and found that there was about 100 square feet of space inside. The Earth Elemental Natal Tail Feather was in the interspatial ring. He had achieved his main goal. In addition to the Natal Tail Feather and some miscellaneous pills and talismans, there was also a heaven-suppressing stone the size of an adult's thumb in the interspatial ring. There was also a jade slip, some third-level upper-grade refining materials, and a fourth-level lower-grade earth mystic crystal the size of an adult's fist. The earth mystic crystal was also an extremely rare earth elemental material. It was extremely strong and very suitable for refining defensive magic tools. In the future, when he improved the Kirin seal, he could add some to increase the defensive ability and strength. Wang Daoyuan took out the jade slip and probed it with his divine sense. Recorded inside was a refining method for a third-level upper-grade magic tool. This magic tool was called Sky Wind Imperial Sand Fan. It was a wind and earth elemental magic tool. The materials used were all in the interspatial ring. The earth elemental natal tail feather was also one of the main materials. This magic tool was indeed used to deal with loose cultivator flying sand. With this thing he didn't need to fear the thick earth devil suppression seal. Loose cultivator flying sand had already prepared all the materials and could refine the Sky Wind Imperial Sand Fan at any time. Wang Daoyuan secretly rejoiced that he was fast enough. If he had dawdled for a while longer, he probably wouldn't have been able to keep the earth elemental natal tail feather. After loose cultivator flying sand refined the sweet rain jade dew pill, the two of them walked towards the wild sand bandits' encampment in the oasis. The early-stage Zifu realm cultivator inside the formation also saw the scene of his boss being killed and didn't have the heart to resist. He then removed the formation and knelt down to beg for mercy. Wang Daoyuan also didn't have any interest in killing him. He asked, "Where is the treasury of this place?" This early-stage Zifu realm cultivator respectfully replied, "Sir, this place doesn't have a treasury. The collected treasures can only be stored here for a few days before the boss sends people to collect them. After taking them last time, there are only a few spirit stones left." After saying this, he handed over a storage bag. Wang Daoyuan opened the storage bag. There were indeed only a few tens of thousands of spirit stones inside. He handed the storage bag to Loose Cultivator Flying Sand and said, "The things I want are inside Loose Cultivator Flying Sand's interspatial ring. There are also some refining materials inside. These things are enough. I won't participate in the matter of raiding the wild sand bandits' lair. Farewell." Loose Cultivator Flying Sand had the heaven-suppressing stone and the thick earth mystic crystal on him. These two materials aren't required for the heavenly wind sand fan. This means that he is used to carrying the most precious refining materials on him. It's not very likely that there are grade 4 materials in the cavern. Wang Daoyuan had already obtained all the things he needed. If he continued to follow the flying sand bandits to raid the wild sand bandits' lair, he wouldn't be able to obtain anything too precious. The wild sand bandits' lair still has a low-grade grade 4 formation. The risk is still not small. Risking his life for some grade 3 materials is not worth it. This time's harvest is already big enough. Taking advantage and running away is the true life-saving move of a cultivator traveling outside. If one is insatiably greedy, it's very easy to throw away one's life. Loose Cultivator Flying Sand also has no way to force him. Right now he has already swallowed the Mountain Oasis, killed Loose Cultivator Flying Sand and 2 middle-stage Zifu Realm cultivators. He has also subdued a late-stage Zifu Realm and an early-stage Zifu Realm cultivator, as well as a flying warship. The strength of the wild sand bandits has already been weakened by more than half. The remaining 2 or 3 big kittens are also unable to cause any big waves. As for Loose Cultivator Flying Sand's son, Wang Daoyuan doesn't put him in his heart at all. His talent is not bad, but it's still not enough to threaten him. Moreover, he and Loose Cultivator Flying Sand have the same moral character, willing to sacrifice their lives and not their wealth. He reckons that they won't give up their lair that they have operated for hundreds of years and want to stubbornly resist. As long as Loose Cultivator Flying Sand is determined to exterminate the wild sand bandits, this bastard definitely won't be able to live. Wang Daoyuan left this place on his sword, returning to Singing Sand Market. Loose Cultivator Flying Sand ordered one of his late-stage Zifu Realm subordinates to take Loose Cultivator Flying Sand's life artifact and bring everyone here to the wild sand bandits' lair to surrender. He himself activates the encampment's formation and recuperates here. In his current state, his battle power is about the same as an early-stage Zifu Realm cultivator. Once his subordinates have evil intentions, his little life will be in danger. After Wang Daoyuan returned to Singing Sand Market, he didn't head to Clear River Inn. Instead, he went to Divine Weapon Pavilion and stayed in He Yuanqing's abode. This time he only used up some spiritual energy to deal with Loose Cultivator Flying Sand and wasn't injured. Staying in Clear River Inn, he won't be threatened. Being so cautious isn't because of some materials he snatched from Loose Cultivator Flying Sand. It's because the scarlet feathered crow's egg in the space of the spirit pearl finally has some movement. Previously, when Wang Daoyuan was recuperating, his clone Tu Yuming didn't stay idle in the space of the spirit pearl. He continuously refined the yang qi in the fiery sunstone to nurture the scarlet feathered crow's egg. After his disdainful efforts and consuming more than 150 kilograms of fiery sunstone, the majestic life force in the scarlet feathered crow's egg became active. This eggshell is very special, spiritual sense can't penetrate it at all. Wang Daoyuan can only feel the majestic life force inside, he has no way of knowing the situation of the chick inside. Right now, the scarlet feathered crow's egg is starting to shake non-stop, the chick may start to break out of the shell at any time. He placed the earth attribute life feather near the dust returning flame to nurture. His spiritual sense has been observing the situation of the scarlet feathered crow's egg. Chapter 455. After a few days of tossing and turning, the red-feathered crow egg quieted down. Maybe the yang qi or the fire spiritual power was not enough. Wang Daoyuan ordered his avatar to continue refining the essence of the fiery sunstone to nourish the red-feathered crow egg. He himself refined the essence of the red sun true fire and injected it into the egg. Things like spiritual fire grew faster. As long as there was enough spiritual qi, the lost essence would quickly recover. Losing a little red sun true fire essence was nothing. After 3 days, another 100 pounds of fiery sunstone was consumed. The essence of the red sun true fire was also lost by 30%. The red-feathered crow egg moved again. The mysterious patterns on the eggshell flashed with golden light. After another half a day, a small crack appeared on the eggshell. It was about to break. Wang Daoyuan immediately moved the red-feathered crow egg out of the space of the spirit pearl. After the birds hatched, the first thing they saw was to get close to them. The red-feathered crow also had the bloodline of the golden crow. Its growth space was great and its future was limitless. Although it had already recognized a master, if he did not cultivate feelings, it was likely to be disobedient in the future. As soon as the red-feathered crow egg came out of the space of the spirit pearl, a strong fire attribute spiritual power mixed with pure yang qi spread in the cave. Fortunately, Wang Daoyuan had already opened the restriction in the cave. The fire spiritual power and pure yang qi would not leak out. Otherwise it would definitely cause a big commotion. As time went by, more and more cracks appeared on the eggshell. After an hour, a small hole appeared on the eggshell. A small golden mouth emerged from the hole. After another hour, the eggshell was pecked half open. The red-feathered crow chick drilled out of the eggshell. This chick was about the size of a chick. It had sparse black fluff on its body. There was an obvious fire attribute spiritual power fluctuation on its body. There was also a strong pure yang qi. Although it was a little difficult to stand up, the spiritual power fluctuation showed that it was a second-level low-grade spiritual bird. Wang Daoyuan stretched out his finger. The little red-feathered crow gently pecked a few times, then opened its mouth to ask him for food. He really did not know what the red-feathered crow liked to eat. There was no record in the inheritance of the 1,000 Spirit sect. The inheritance of the 100 Spirits Supreme was not in his hands. Generally, birds like to eat insects, but the only insect in the space of the spiritual pearl was the soul-chasing bee. Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense entered the space of the spiritual pearl. He took out a soul-chasing bee larva from the beehive and handed it to the nestling's mouth. It didn't even look at it. Wang Daoyuan then took out spirit grains, rabbit meat and other things, but it didn't even look at them. Finally, he took out a pine nut from the red scale pine, crushed it and placed it next to the chick's mouth. This time it ate some. It seemed like this little fella was only interested in fire attribute phase. He kept the fledgling into the spiritual pearl space and handed it over to his doppelganger Tu Yuming to take care of. The eggshell was not an ordinary item, so he carefully put it away. Perhaps it would be useful in the future. The fledgling entered the space of the spiritual pearl, and as soon as it had the ability to move, it ran towards the scarlet yang real fire. It stood right in the middle of the flames and was not hurt at all. On the contrary, it looked very intoxicated. Wang Daoyuan simply ignored it. After cleaning up the fire spiritual power and pure yang qi in the cave, he walked out of the cave. There was nothing he urgently needed in the Mingsha plain, so it was time to leave. After bidding farewell to He Yuanqin, he went to the Noal's shop. There were many fierce beasts roaming around the edge of the southern wasteland. If he continued to go deeper, there would be more fierce beasts and a large number of demonic cultivators. The danger would only be greater, so it was better to ask for information first. When he arrived at the Noal's shop, Yuanqin quickly greeted, "Dao Yu Zhou, are you here to sell or buy information?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "Naturally, I'm here to buy information. What information can I sell?" Yuan Qin smiled and said, "Dao Yu Zhou is too polite. You brought the flying sand bandits and killed the wild sand wanderer. The wild sand wanderer's son, Feng Tianyi, sacrificed his life rather than his wealth. He even brought a few loyal followers to defend his lair in the southern part of the Mingsha Ridge. This is a big matter related to the situation of the entire Mingsha plain. This information is worth a lot of spirit stones. In the past few days, there have been several people who have come to me to inquire about the situation. They are very generous. Unfortunately, I don't have any friendship with the flying sand bandits, so I don't dare to ask them. Several big business deals have been delayed and I'm about to die from worry. As long as you tell me the cause and effect of this matter, I'll tell you whatever information you want to know today, and I won't take a single cent." Wang Daoyuan pondered for a moment, and felt that it wasn't a big deal. He could just hide the key information and it wouldn't reveal any of his secrets. He smiled and said, "There's no problem in telling you this information. It's just that you have to fulfill your promise. If you don't tell me what information I ask, then don't blame me for being impolite." Yuan Qin patted his chest and guaranteed, "As long as I know Dao, you can ask as much as you want." Wang Daoyuan continued, "Actually, it's not a big deal. It's just that when I was hunting in the Mingsha Ridge, I took down a third-rank middle-grade sand-chasing harrier. Before I could get it, that grandson Feng Tianyi rushed out and snatched the sand-chasing harrier's corpse. I chased after him for a while and the wild sand wanderer came out to protect him. I warned him to return it to me, or else I would exterminate the wild sand bandits. But the wild sand wanderer wanted to use the sand-chasing harrier's corpse to refine an artifact to deal with the flying sand wanderer, so no matter what I said, he wasn't willing to return it. I wasn't a match for the father and son, so I could only reveal the information to the flying sand wanderer, and agree to cooperate with the flying sand bandits to take care of the wild sand bandits. The actual operation was that the wild sand wanderer and I led several late-stage Zifu disciples to infiltrate the mountain shade oasis. After I killed a savage beast, I took advantage of the time when the wild sand bandits' garrison came to ask for benefits to ambush and kill him, and then attacked the wild sand bandits' garrison. The wild sand wanderer led a late-stage Zifu disciple, a middle-stage Zifu disciple, and a flying warship to rescue him. Afterwards they were ambushed by me and the flying sand bandits. The middle-stage Zifu disciple was killed by me, and the late-stage Zifu disciple surrendered. As for the wild sand wanderer, he was killed by me and the flying sand wanderer. The other details are related to my own secrets, so you don't need to ask about them." Yuan Qin still wanted to ask about some more details, but since Wang Daoyuan had already said so, he didn't dare to ask any more questions. Which cultivator didn't have some secrets? Some secrets even father and son and wife couldn't tell each other. Asking about other people's secrets was a big taboo in the Xiuxian world. Seeing that he didn't ask any more, Wang Daoyuan said with a smile, "Now it's my turn to ask. In the southern wasteland, there's a mountain range that was transformed from a demon's body. Which one is it?" He asked this question because he wanted to know the specific situation of the true devil blood lotus, so that he wouldn't be cheated by the flying sand wanderer. Yuan Qin replied, "There are too many of these mountains in the southern wasteland. Legend has it that the southern wasteland was the battlefield of the ancient demons' invasion. Now that the southern wasteland is like this, it's because a large number of demons were buried here, causing the spiritual energy to change greatly, and it's no longer suitable for human cultivators to live in. Legend has it that there are more than 10 mountains that were transformed from the bodies of high-level demons. For example, the Blood Demon Ridge south of Mingsha Plain, and the Buried Demon Mountain south of the Blood Demon Ridge. Legend has it that they were all transformed from the bodies of demons." It seemed that he couldn't get any definite information, so Wang Daoyuan gave up asking about the true devil blood lotus. He mainly wanted to ask about the metal attribute rank 4 spirit veins, so he asked, "Dao Yu, do you know the distribution of rank 4 spirit veins in the southern wasteland? I came to the southern wasteland to look for some rare spirit objects. It's hard to find them without knowing the attributes of spirit veins." Yuan Qin smiled awkwardly, "Dao Yu, you're really making things difficult for me. The spiritual energy in the southern wasteland is violent, and without reaching the golden core realm, it's impossible to go too deep. Most of the information I have is in the vicinity of Mingsha Plain. Since Dao Yu wants to know, I'll tell you what I know. To the east of Mingsha Plain, there's a fire attribute rank 4 spirit vein, and to the west, there's a metal attribute rank 3 spirit vein. In the Blood Demon Ridge south of Mingsha Plain, there are 2 rank 4 spirit veins crossing each other. They are the metal attribute rank 4 spirit vein extending from the north to the south, and the metal attribute rank 4 spirit vein extending from the east to the west. Further south there's the buried demon mountain, and there's a water attribute rank 4 spirit vein. I don't know anything else, so Daoyu, don't make things difficult for me. Chapter 456. After hearing Yuan Chen's words, Wang Daoyuan fell into deep thought. If he wanted to find a metal attribute spirit fire, he would naturally look for it near a high-grade metal attribute spirit vein. The Blood Demon Ridge had a 4th-grade metal attribute spirit vein, so it was naturally an excellent target. After a while he said, "Tell me about the situation in the Blood Demon Ridge." Yuan Chen continued, "The spirit qi in the south of Mingsha Plain is even more violent. Cultivators below the Golden Core realm can't withstand the invasion of the spirit qi, so very few righteous cultivators go to the Blood Demon Ridge. Once demonic cultivators enter the Mingsha Plain, they will be dealt with. The news on both sides is not very good, so I only know the general information. I don't know the details." The mountain tops of the Blood Demon Ridge were extremely messy. They were made up of dozens of big and small mountain ranges that were squeezed together. The longest from east to west is 40 to 50,000 miles, and the widest from north to south is more than 10,000 miles. Legend has it that when the demonic race invaded in ancient times, an army of blood fiends was wiped out by our ancestors in this area. At that time, the war was urgent and there was no time to deal with these demonic corpses. Later these corpses turned into the Blood Demon Ridge. It's hard to say whether the legend is true or false, but the Blood Demon Ridge is indeed suitable for demonic cultivators to cultivate. It's said that there are many Golden Core demonic cultivators in the Blood Demon Ridge, but they don't dare to show themselves. There are also many fierce beasts in the Blood Demon Ridge, including 4th-grade fierce beasts. Even the Golden Core cultivators of the Divine Weapon Pavilion don't dare to enter the Blood Demon Ridge. If Daoyu wants to explore the Blood Demon Ridge, it's best to explore the northern border. If you encounter danger, you will have a chance to escape. Once you enter the Blood Demon Ridge, your life and death will depend on the will of the heavens. Wang Daoyuan denied, "I'm just asking. I don't want to go to the Blood Demon Ridge. By the way, I heard that the 4 top forces were left behind in ancient times to guard the 4 directions. I don't know if it's true." The know-it-all smiled and said, "This is not a secret. The 4 top forces indeed guard the 4 directions and protect the human race. The Wind Snow Palace guards the Arctic Ice Plains, the Archaic Arcanum Sect guards the West Sea, and the Divine Weapon Pavilion and Tai Sword Sect guards the Southern Wasteland. Back then, there was a big force called the Valley of Beasts guarding the Sky Mountain Range. It was just that several tens of thousands of years ago, it was exterminated by the demonic beasts of the Heavenly/Mountain Range. Only some rumors were left behind. Other than the 4 top forces, the other forces did not know the specific situation in the Valley of Beasts. I only heard some rumors when I was looking for information. The Valley of Beasts mainly cultivated the way of taming beasts. After its destruction, its inheritance was scattered everywhere. Most of the existing beast-taming sects had received incomplete inheritances from the Valley of Beasts. Unfortunately, none of these sects were able to achieve great things. There is no one guarding the east, so the Heavenly/Mountain Range often causes major incidents. Taking advantage of the free treatment given to him by Yuan Chen, Wang Daoyuan tried to fish for more information, including the secrets of the various countries and major powers. Yuan Chen was worthy of being called a know-it-all. Although he didn't know those very confidential matters, he knew quite a lot about the scandals of the various major powers. After talking with Yuan Chen for half a day, he left the shop. After learning the general situation of the Bloody Demon Ridge, Wang Daoyuan left the Singing Sand Market and headed south. The Singing Sand Plain was more than 40,000 kilometers wide from north to south. As he flew in the air on his sword, his eyes were filled with a desolate yellow color. Occasionally there would be a few oases that flashed past. When he reached the southern border of the Singing Sand Plain, green mountains and clear waters finally appeared in front of him. However, the spiritual power here was also extremely violent. Even with the strength of Wang Daoyuan's physical body, he still felt pain in his meridians as if they were being cut by knives. When he used his spiritual power to suppress it, the pain was obviously reduced. However, if he continued like this, his spiritual power would continue to be consumed. Ordinary cultivators could not bear it at all. Therefore, righteous Dao cultivators rarely came here. As he walked forward, the human cultivators he encountered were basically demonic Dao cultivators. Righteous Dao cultivators and demonic Dao cultivators were irreconcilable. Encountering demonic Dao cultivators was more dangerous than encountering ferocious beasts. Fortunately, Wang Daoyuan had Bai Sheng, a demonic Dao cultivator clone. Bai Sheng walked the path of the blood demon. The blood demon absorbed the blood essence of human cultivators or demonic beasts to cultivate and focused on strengthening the physical body. In fact, Wang Daoyuan was very similar to a demonic Dao cultivator of the blood demon Dao. His physical strength was stronger, and his blood chi fluctuations were much stronger than ordinary cultivators. Moreover, there were also many cultivators with 5 spirit veins in the blood demon Dao. Because demonic Dao cultivators did not pay attention to spirit veins, the ratio of demonic Dao cultivators with 4 or 5 spirit veins far exceeded that of righteous Dao cultivators. Demonic Dao cultivators with 5 spirit veins were more suited for body tempering. There were even more demonic Dao cultivators with 5 spirit veins. Compared to true demonic Dao cultivators, Wang Daoyuan's blood qi and physical body were still much weaker. However, this could be compensated for. There was a type of Tier 2 medicinal pill called the boiling blood pill. After Foundation establishment cultivators consumed it, their physical strength would increase for a short period of time. This medicinal pill was not very useful for Zifu realm cultivators, but it could significantly strengthen their blood qi fluctuations. It could be refined with the blood essence of demonic beasts. Coincidentally, Tu Yoming's clone also knew how to refine pills, so he refined some boiling blood pills. There was no problem in using magical powers. His clone, Bai Sheng, had a Tier 3 demonic Dao artifact forging legacy. He killed 2 ferocious beasts and used their bones to refine a few Tier 3 demonic Dao artifacts. Demonic Dao cultivators did not pay much attention to magical powers. They would learn whatever was powerful. It was not rare for demonic Dao cultivators to learn sword magical powers. Not long after he entered the Blood Demon Ridge, he encountered a battle of magical powers. Dozens of miles ahead, in a small mountain that was several hundred feet tall, the sound of magical powers colliding could be heard constantly. After entering within 15 miles of the small mountain, he used his divine sense to investigate the situation. He saw 5 middle-stage Zifu realm demonic Dao cultivators surrounding and attacking a middle-stage Zifu realm righteous Dao cultivator. This righteous Dao cultivator was also a lightning-type sword cultivator. After careful observation, he discovered that this sword cultivator was someone familiar. It was the disciple of the Tai sword sect's Taoist Profound Thunder, Kuei Jian. To be able to meet an old acquaintance here, it was really like meeting an old friend in a foreign land. His current situation was not good. Under the siege of 5 demonic Dao cultivators, he almost did not even have the strength to retaliate. His body was covered in wounds, and his entire body was covered in blood. If not for the fact that Wang Daoyuan saw the long sword in his hand, he would not have recognized him. After all, Kuei Jian was an old acquaintance. During the exploration of True Monarch 100 Spirits estate, Kuei Jian had spoken up for him many times. If he could help, he would help. Wang Daoyuan took out the white tiger blade and used the sword shadow godlight technique. He urged the firestorm kite under his feet to attack the small mountain in front of him. Sensing that someone was coming, Kuei Jian and the 5 demonic Dao cultivators all raised their guard. When Kuei Jian saw the white tiger blade, he knew that it was Wang Daoyuan. His eyes revealed a look of excitement. The 5 demonic Dao cultivators thought that he had come to steal their business. After all, Wang Daoyuan's current blood energy was surging, and he looked very similar to a demonic Dao cultivator. An elderly demonic Dao cultivator clasped his hands and said, "Daoyu has come late. This cultivator belongs to the 5 of us. Please, Daoyu, find another target and do not interfere." Wang Daoyuan laughed, "Since Daoyu does not welcome you, then I will not interfere in your business." Hearing these words, the demonic Dao cultivators relaxed slightly. Wang Daoyuan turned around and was about to go around the small mountain. When he was only 4 to 5 miles away from the demonic Dao cultivators, the white tiger blade in his hand flew out, bringing along 10 sword shadows as it charged towards the elderly demonic Dao cultivator. After Kuei Jian recognized that it was Wang Daoyuan, he had been preparing to launch a sneak attack. At this time, the 5 people's attention was drawn away by Wang Daoyuan's attack. He naturally would not let go of the opportunity. Lightning flickered on the life-bound flying sword as it attacked a muscular middle-aged demonic Dao cultivator. The 2 demonic Dao cultivators also took out magic artifacts to block. However, Wang Daoyuan's white tiger blade was Venerable Fiend's inheritance, so its power was greatly increased against demonic Dao cultivators. Kuei Jian was a lightning attribute cultivator, specialized in restraining demonic Dao cultivators, heretical cultivators, and the like. The two's fighting strength also far exceeded those of the same level. The elderly demonic Dao cultivator's life-bound magic artifact was broken by Wang Daoyuan, and his entire body was cut in half at the waist. Kuei Jian's lightning attribute attack was too destructive, turning the muscular middle-aged demonic Dao cultivator into charcoal. Two of his companions died instantly, and the remaining 3 demonic Dao cultivators were utterly terrified. They clearly had the advantage in numbers, but they did not dare to continue fighting. They raised their magic artifacts and wanted to escape. Chapter 457. Wang Daoyuan urged the flaming wind kite to continue the chase, while asking Kuei Jian, "Daoyu, can you still fight?" Kuei Jian didn't say anything, only nodding. Wang Daoyuan laughed, "One for you, two for me. Don't let them escape." Saying this, he used the Earth Divine Lightning to attack the opponent. His Earth Divine Lightning could only be cultivated to the early Zifu level, and its power was somewhat lacking. However, it was perfect for dealing with this group of demonic cultivators. Zifu cultivators could use their divine sense to change the direction of their spells. Unless their speed was faster than their opponent's spells, it was useless to dodge. A demonic cultivator using a bone wheel gave up on dodging. While fleeing, he used his magic weapon to take on the Earth Divine Lightning. After 3 rounds of Earth Divine Lightning, his bone wheel was shattered, and the 4th hit his head, instantly turning his body into pieces. Then, under the corrosion of Earth-type spiritual energy, he turned into ashes. Under Wang Daoyuan's deliberate control, his storage bag was undamaged. He couldn't bear to use the Earth Divine Lightning on the second demonic cultivator. This person used a bone sword, which he could snatch and use as his own magic weapon. Controlling 10 sword shadows to surround him, the demonic cultivator used the bone sword to attack the sword shadows. Wang Daoyuan controlled the sword shadows to dodge. His magic weapon couldn't be damaged. The 10 sword shadows were in different positions. The moment he used the bone sword to attack, 3 sword shadows attacked him from behind. His protective spiritual energy couldn't withstand a single blow from the sword shadows. A sword shadow from the side cut off the arm holding the sword. Wang Daoyuan used his divine sense to interfere with his control of the bone sword. Then, the 10 sword shadows attacked together, cutting this person into dozens of pieces in an instant. These 3 people had lost their courage. They were like sheep that only knew how to flee. They didn't even have the courage to resist. Killing them was as easy as flipping his hand. On the other side, Kuei Jian also cut the last demonic cultivator in half. Wang Daoyuan collected the 3 demonic cultivator storage bags and the bone sword. He asked Kuei Jian, "Why did you come to Mount Blood Demon?" Kuei Jian answered, "I often travel in the southern wasteland and have been at the border for more than 10 years. There aren't any demonic cultivators in the borderlands, and the ferocious beasts are too weak, so there's no need for me to train. That's why I came here." Not long after he arrived at the Blood Demon Ridge, he was targeted by these 5 fellows. These fiendish cultivators really didn't care about the rules. They attacked from all sides. This time it's all thanks to Daoyu's help. Otherwise I would have to use the method left behind by Master. Wang Daoyuan looked at Daoyu's undisguised swordsmanship and said with a smile, "Daoyu dared to enter the Bloody Demon Ridge, so it's not surprising that you were besieged. Didn't you think of disguising yourself?" The Kuei sword said unconcernedly, "I've traveled a lot and I've always been like this. What's there to pretend about?" Wang Daoyuan didn't say anything else. This guy was a bit like his second brother, a complete hothead. Second brother also knew how to bow to reality because of his family. This guy was a direct disciple of the Tai sword sect. Who could make him bow his head? Wang Daoyuan sighed saying, "Daoyu Kuei, you aren't weak. A middle Zifu disciple can defeat an ordinary late Zifu disciple. However, this is the territory of fiendish cultivators. Although the Tai sword sect is powerful, it'll be hard for them to wipe out the Blood Demon Ridge. These fiendish cultivators won't fear your status. As soon as you show your face, you'll definitely be besieged. As I see it, you should leave the Blood Demon Ridge as soon as possible." Kuei Jian pondered for a moment, then asked, "What about you?" Wang Daoyuan took the bone sword into his hands, then laughed, "Do you think I'm a fiendish cultivator or a righteous cultivator?" Kuei Jian sighed, saying, "Pentaspirit Veins cultivators truly do have many tricks up their sleeves. Fine, I'll listen to your advice and leave Mount Blood Demon." Wang Daoyuan hurriedly urged, "Wait a moment. With your injuries you'll be surrounded by beasts no matter where you go." He used the Azure Dragon Pearl to heal Kuei Jian's injuries. Kuei Jian's injuries weren't light, but they were all external wounds. The Azure Dragon Pearl's healing effects were even better. Soon his injuries were mostly healed. Wang Daoyuan laughed. Help me tell Reverend Dark Thunder that I saved you once, and that I've repaid the favor I owed him. Kuei Jian didn't agree. Master said that you're a fat sheep. The value of your favor is very high. In the future I'll be able to rip you off. Let's talk about our own matters. This time I owe you a favor and it has nothing to do with Master. After speaking he flew off on his sword. Wang Daoyuan sighed, sighing. Even fiendish sword cultivators were so black-hearted. True gentlemen like himself were becoming fewer and fewer. Now that the bone sword in his hand had recognized him as its master, he was no different from a fiendish cultivator. Unfortunately, Kuei Jian had been here before, and hadn't been able to keep him alive to refine into a clone. Now he had to find a new target and see which fiendish cultivator would be so lucky. A great battle had just broken out on this mountain. Soon, it would attract ferocious beasts and fiendish cultivators who wanted to take advantage of the situation. Wang Daoyuan suppressed his cultivation to the early stage of the Zifu realm. Putting on the spirit-restricting silk cloak, he flew towards the west on his bone sword. To find clues about the metal attribute spiritual fire, he had to first find a place to stay. Releasing the soul-chasing bees, he searched along the northern edge of the Blood Devil Ridge. After these soul-chasing bees came out of the Spirit Pearl space, they seemed abnormally excited, running around in all directions. 15 minutes later, the soul-chasing bees returned and found a few abodes where cultivators lived. Wang Daoyuan let the soul-chasing bees lead the way, heading towards an abode with water spiritual chi fluctuations. There was a large metal attribute spiritual vein here, but he didn't have a metal attribute spiritual fire, and couldn't turn the violent metal attribute spiritual chi gentle. Therefore he still had to find a place with other attributes of spiritual chi to stay. After arriving at the place, the soul-chasing bees leading the way suddenly died. He used his divine sense to investigate the soul-chasing bees' corpses and found that it was caused by severe internal injuries. It seemed that the soul-chasing bees couldn't withstand the violent spiritual chi here either. He couldn't casually send them out in the future. The abode in front of him was not bad, and the position of the cave entrance was well hidden. Because of the presence of water spiritual chi, the vegetation here was quite lush. The entrance of the abode was hidden in the vegetation, and with a divine sense concealing formation, it would completely not attract the attention of passing cultivators and ferocious beasts. Wang Daoyuan decided that this would be the place where he would stay in the future. As for the early-stage Zifu realm demonic cultivator inside, he didn't take him seriously at all. There was a low-grade Tier 3 defensive formation at the entrance of the abode, but Wang Daoyuan didn't take it seriously. He directly used the bone sword in his hand to execute the Sword Shadow Divine Light technique, slashing at the defensive light barrier. After one attack, the demonic cultivator inside couldn't sit still anymore and shouted, "This abode is already occupied. Daoyu, don't you know the rules?" Wang Daoyuan didn't bother to pay attention to him. It was because there was someone that he came here. He continued to attack the defensive light barrier, and the demonic cultivator inside was furious. He opened a hole in the defensive light barrier and said, "Come in if you have the guts." Wang Daoyuan was wearing the blood fire purple gold armor. Normal Zifu realm cultivators couldn't threaten him at all. This guy wasn't a bandit leader like the Flying Sand cultivator, who had many years of savings. The probability of a normal loose cultivator having a talisman treasure was next to zero. Protecting the 10 sword shadows by his side, he walked into the abode. There was a mid-grade Tier 3 spirit spring inside the abode, and the amount of water wasn't small. The demonic cultivator inside used a spell, and a cold air swept past the spring, bringing up a large amount of water. The water was frozen into ice swords by the cold air, flying towards Wang Daoyuan. He had 10 sword shadows protecting him. Before the ice swords could even get close, they were all cut into ice shards. Wang Daoyuan became interested. This was an ice-type demonic cultivator. He used the Kirin seal to suppress him. His cultivation was higher, and the Kirin seal was able to suppress demonic cultivators. The early-stage Zifu realm demonic cultivator was completely unable to resist the suppressive power of the Kirin seal. Once the Kirin seal was used, he couldn't even use 30% of his strength. Soon he was pressed to the ground by the Kirin seal, unable to move. Wang Daoyuan used the soul-severing blade to attack his Zifu. This guy didn't have a Zifu anomaly, so his Zifu was instantly broken. His soul resisted, but it was still heavily injured. Wang Daoyuan used the soul-severing blade, slashing at the forehead of his soul. Then he sent it into his soul fragment and stored it in the space of the soul pearl. Within the space of the soul pearl, Bai Sheng's clone was inspecting the 4 storage bags he had obtained today. He had obtained quite a number of Tier 3 refining materials and spirit medicines. Wang Daoyuan couldn't help but sigh. It was really easy to make money without any capital. No wonder there were so many treasure-seeking cultivators. Chapter 458. In the following days, Wang Daoyuan did not stay idle. Since he had occupied a new cave, he had to make some arrangements. The array left behind by the demonic cultivator was called the Jade Water Golden Edge Array. It was good for both offense and defense, so Wang Daoyuan continued to use it. In addition to the defensive array, there was also a spirit sealing array to block divine sense. There was also a concealment array at the door. If one did not check carefully, they would not be able to discover that there was a cave here. The most important thing was the spirit isolation array. After all, he was not a demonic cultivator. Staying in this violent spirit energy made him uncomfortable. He also knew how to soften the violent spirit energy. However, in this place where the spirit energy was extremely violent, it needed at least a Tier 4 array to be effective. He was only a Tier 3 array master and did not have the ability to set up a Tier 4 array. However, the spirit isolation array was easier to set up as it could isolate all external spirit energy. Low-grade Tier 3 array formations could isolate the invasion of external spirit chi. As for the cultivation needs, he had plenty of resources. He had a disc array that could isolate the probing of divine sense. The array disc for the spirit isolation array still needed to be refined temporarily. However, the spirit isolation array was a relatively simple array and did not take much effort. In addition, the new ice attribute demonic cultivator was also a Tier 3 array master. He did not need to do anything to set up the array. This demonic cultivator's clone was called Chui Ming. In his early years, he was also a rogue cultivator who lived at the edge of the southern wasteland. Although he had an ice spirit root, his talent was not very good. The highest ice spirit root was only 4 inches. A rogue cultivator with such talent could not reach foundation establishment without any fortuitous encounters. By chance, he received a relatively inferior demonic cultivator inheritance and walked the path of the blood demon. Demonic cultivators of the blood demon lineage were not afraid of chi and blood exhaustion. Chui Ming also succeeded in foundation establishment when he was nearly 100 years old. At the edge of the southern wasteland, demonic cultivators were like rats crossing the street. He was not willing to stay at the edge of the southern wasteland, so he went deep into the southern wasteland and came to the Blood Demon Mountain area. From Chui Ming's memory, he knew that the central area of the Blood Demon Mountain was the intersection of the metal attribute spirit vein and the non-attribute spirit vein. There was an underground city called Blood Demon City. There might be a golden core demonic cultivator in the city. It was said that the Blood Demon City was protected by a Tier 5 formation. Even the Golden Core cultivators of the Divine Weapon Pavilion and the Tai Sword sect did not dare to touch the Blood Demon City. This Blood Demon City was not a simple isolated city, but a complex underground world. There were spirit fields, places to raise ferocious beasts, as well as various mines and caves. Wang Daoyuan reckoned that it was impossible for such a large underground world to be hidden from the Divine Weapon Pavilion and the Tai Sword sect. With the strength of the two sects, it would not be difficult to flatten this place. It wasn't that they couldn't destroy it, but that they didn't want to. There were 3 forces in the southern wasteland. They were the remnants of the devil race, the devil cultivators, and the ferocious beasts. Demons and beasts had no possibility of compromising with humans. However, demonic cultivators were different. They were just humans with different cultivation paths. This was especially true for the Blood Demon clan. Their cultivation method required them to kill ferocious beasts. They didn't have much conflict with the human race and were considered an important force in suppressing the southern wasteland. If it weren't for the fact that these guys had invaded the borders of the southern wasteland as soon as they got stronger, they could be considered as allies of the two sections. If Wang Daoyuan himself was the decision-maker of the two sects, he would also keep the Blood Demon clan and maintain the stability of the southern wasteland. The Blood Demon City was the intersection of 2 large rank 4 spirit veins. The spirit eyes of the 2 spirit veins were near the Blood Demon City. The spirit eye of a spirit vein was the most likely place to give birth to a high-grade spirit object. If there really was a metal attribute spirit fire in the Blood Demon Ridge, the greatest possibility would be here. Wang Daoyuan really needed to make a trip to the Blood Demon City. However, it wasn't easy to sneak into the Blood Demon City. Every cultivator who entered the Blood Demon City had to be strictly inspected. Wang Daoyuan's current method of passing off fish eyes as pearls would definitely be exposed once it was strictly inspected. Moreover, there might be golden core demonic cultivators in the Blood Demon City. If he wanted to sneak in, he had to at least have the means to hide from the Purple Mansion Realm demonic cultivators and make the golden core demonic cultivators not notice him. With his current physical strength, he was directly exposed to the violent spirit chi. He also needed to use spirit energy to resist the corrosion of the spirit chi or use the spirit isolating jade pendant. Even if he wore the god restriction cloak, he couldn't completely hide from demonic cultivators of the same level at close range. If he wanted to withstand the violent spirit chi, he could only strengthen his physical body. However, refining the body wasn't something that could be done overnight. Although Wang Daoyuan's physical body was strong, the blood chi was strong. But to reach the level of ignoring the violent spirit chi in the Blood Demon Ridge, it would take at least 20 to 30 years. Even if he had sufficient resources to support it, it would take more than 10 years. As for body refining techniques, he had ready-made ones in his hands. The 5-spirit immortal art was a kind of brilliant body refining technique. After condensing 5 spirit power seeds, the 5 elements would nourish the 5 internal organs, and the physical strength would rapidly increase. This was a body refining from the inside out. With the strength of the internal organs and blood chi as the foundation, it drove the muscles and bones to become stronger. Just looking at the physical situation, he was no different from an ordinary demonic cultivator. To see whether he was a demonic cultivator or not, a golden core expert would have to personally examine him or use thunder techniques to see the effect of the attack. Although he hadn't obtained the metal attribute spirit fire, it wasn't necessary for him to condense the metal attribute spirit power seeds. The current 4 spirit power seeds were condensed by extracting the essence of the spirit fire. They weren't fused with the spirit fire. Extracting the essence of some metal attribute phase to condense the metal attribute spirit power seeds wasn't much different from other spirit power seeds. In the future, when he found the metal attribute spirit fire, he could destroy the metal attribute spirit power seeds and condense them again. Wang Daoyuan's cultivation had reached the mid-stage of the Purple Mansion realm, and he could condense the 5th spirit power seed. In terms of metal attribute phase, he could choose the Heaven Ferocious Metal or Grand Unity Essence Gold. Wang Daoyuan preferred the Heaven Ferocious Metal. If he used the Heaven Ferocious Metal to condense the spirit power seeds, the metal attribute spirit power would definitely have some murderous aura. This was very similar to the demonic cultivators of the blood demon lineage. They hunted ferocious beasts and extracted their blood essence to aid their cultivation. How could they not have some murderous aura? Who would suspect that a cultivator with a strong physical body, vigorous blood chi, evil dharma artifacts, and murderous aura wasn't a demonic cultivator of the blood demon lineage? After Cui Ming's clone finished refining the spirit isolation array, Wang Daoyuan let him out of the spiritual pearl space and had him set up the spirit isolation array and the spirit isolation array in the cave abode. After setting up the array, Wang Daoyuan took out a fist-sized piece of Heaven Ferocious Metal from the spiritual pearl space. It wasn't easy to find this item in the state of Zhao, but it wasn't rare in the Blood Demon Ridge. The piece of Heaven Ferocious Metal in his hand was snatched from a demonic cultivator. The method of condensing the spirit power seeds and extracting the essence of phase was very similar to refining artifacts. However, it had a higher requirement of purity. After all, it had to be fused into the body. If there were too many impurities, it could cause the metal attribute spirit power to become impure and even damage the Dantian. This was also a huge advantage of condensing the spirit power seeds with the spiritual fire. The essence of the spiritual fire was definitely pure enough. Lin Yun took out a wisp of scarlet yang primordial fire from the spiritual pearl space and roasted the piece of Heaven Ferocious Metal. After the Heaven Ferocious Metal was melted, the special spirit power within was extracted. A few days later, a ball of liquid formed by the perfect fusion of pure metal attribute spirit power and evil chi was obtained. As for the piece of Heaven Ferocious Metal, it had become a level 1 metal attribute spirit material and carried a faint evil chi and metal attribute spirit power. After absorbing the essence of the Heaven Ferocious Metal into his Dantian, he began to work on condensing the metal attribute spirit power seeds. 3 days later, a silver seed the size of a soybean appeared in his Dantian. At this time, the wood, earth, and water seeds were already the size of a child's fist. The fire attribute spirit power seed that had been condensed not long ago was also the size of a longan. Although the silver seed was a little small, when he worked on it, it automatically absorbed the metal attribute spirit power and underwent a second refinement, constantly strengthening itself. The second refinement produced pure metal attribute spirit power that also carried a lot of evil qi. After the 5 elemental spirit power seeds were gathered, not only would they undergo a second refinement, they would also actively absorb the spirit power that entered his dantian and directly refine it. It was no wonder that after the 5 elemental spirit power seeds were gathered, the cultivation speed would increase significantly. It was like having a small spirit root. Chapter 459. The violent spirit energy in the southern wasteland was mainly affected by the decimating heaven abyss. Under the influence of the violent spirit energy, the spirit veins in the southern wasteland also had some problems, and the spirit energy produced was also somewhat violent. This situation was more serious the further south one went. Just like the spirit energy produced by the spirit veins in Mingsha Plain, Wang Daoyuan could directly use it for cultivation, just that it was somewhat uncomfortable. But using the spirit energy in the Blood Demon Ridge directly for cultivation would harm the meridians. Although the cave was already protected by a spirit isolation formation, there was still a middle-grade level 3 spirit spring inside the cave. At the mouth of this spirit spring, there was a pool of half a mu in size. The amount of water coming out of the spring was not small, it could produce 20 to 30 caddies of water in a breath's time. After the spring water flowed out of the pool, not long after, it flowed into a crack in the rock. In the spring water there was still a lot of spirit energy, just that it was somewhat violent. Wang Daoyuan took out a wisp of Gui water death flame from the space of the spirit pearl, and placed it at the mouth of the spring. The Gui water death flame did not have the power of the dust returning flame that could even burn stones, so it could not burn all the spring water. But it still had the ability to ignite the violent water attribute spirit energy and turn it into his own spirit energy. When this wisp of Gui water death flame landed on the mouth of the spring, the black flame instantly expanded, igniting all the spirit energy in the spring water. A small portion of the spring water was also burned, turning into water attribute spirit energy. Apart from a small portion of water attribute spirit energy and yin qi escaping, most of the spirit energy was used to strengthen the flame. And the spring water that was not burned also became ordinary water that contained almost no spirit energy. Wang Daoyuan continuously extracted spirit energy from the flame, using it for cultivation. After being burned by the spirit fire, the spirit energy was extremely pure. With a little refining it could be used for his own use. Then he used the 5 spirits immortal transformation technique to convert the water attribute spirit energy into spirit energy of other attributes. Afterwards Wang Daoyuan tried to condense vital essence. After the 5 spirit energy seeds were complete, the spirit energy was extremely pure. Using it to condense vital essence, the speed was more than twice as fast as before with the 4 spirit energy seeds. This cultivation speed was indeed comparable to a double spirit root cultivator with an 8-inch main spirit root and above. Wang Daoyuan also experienced the feeling of being a genius cultivator. The body refining part of the 5 spirits immortal transformation technique was to draw the 5 elemental spirit energy and a portion of vital essence into the 5 organs. It nourished the 5 viscera and changed the attributes of the 5 viscera, forming a cycle. Among the 5 viscera, the heart belonged to fire, controlling the blood, the spleen belonged to earth, controlling the muscles, the lung belonged to metal, controlling the skin, the kidney belonged to water, controlling the bones, the liver belonged to wood, controlling the tendons. If the 5 viscera were strong, then the tendons, bones, muscles, skin and qi and blood would all be strengthened. The 5 viscera of the human body were relatively fragile, so one had to be extremely careful in the process of drawing in spiritual energy. If one was not careful, one's internal organs would be damaged. This was also the reason why most body tempering cultivation techniques did not dare to temper the 5 viscera. Wang Daoyuan's spiritual power carried special attributes, which made the process of merging with his internal organs even more dangerous. Among the 5 elements, wood and water were the most gentle. The water attribute spiritual power contained yin energy, and it had to be channeled into the kidneys. The kidney was too important and could not be tested carelessly. If something went wrong, they would be in big trouble. It was better to start with what attribute spiritual energy. The special attribute of what attribute spiritual energy was vitality. It was more gentle and wouldn't easily hurt the liver. He took out the wood attribute spirit power and a portion of the liquid true essence from his dantian and poured it into his liver meridian, finally flowing into his liver. Then, the wood attribute spiritual energy was converted into other attributes and nourished the other 4 internal organs. It took more than 10 days for the nourishment to be completed. His 5 viscera, 6 bowels and meridians were all nourished. After the initial nourishment, the strength of his 5 viscera had increased by quite a bit. Then he merged another type of spiritual energy and circulated it in his 5 viscera and meridians. After all 5 types of spiritual energy had been circulated, the strength of his 5 viscera and meridians had increased by quite a bit. Then he could channel the 5 types of spiritual energy into his 5 viscera and circulate them in the same way as before. For the next 8 or 9 years, Wang Daoyuan had been tempering his body in the cave. With the Gui water hell flame burning the spirit spring, he quickly obtained spiritual energy and condensed true essence to nourish his 5 viscera. This way he could save a lot of time to recover and have more time to nourish his 5 viscera and meridians. The results of his body tempering in one day were equivalent to 3 or 4 days of an ordinary body cultivator. The results of these years of cultivation were also very rich, benefiting from the foundation he had laid down in the past 100 years. His current physical strength was no longer weaker than an ordinary body cultivator of the same level. His chi, blood, and physical strength far surpassed those of the same level. Without using any spiritual energy, just relying on his physical strength, a punch was comparable to an ordinary early Zifu realm cultivator's full-strength attack. With this kind of power, it wasn't impossible for him to kill an unprepared mid-Zifu realm cultivator with a single punch. It was simply too suitable to be used with the cloud mist escape. If he used a body cultivation technique, it wouldn't be difficult for him to face an ordinary late Zifu realm cultivator head-on. The berserk spiritual energy of Mount Blood Devil was already negligible to him. It was time for him to infiltrate Blood Devil City. The Gui water hell flame was much easier to control than the dust returning flame. As long as he extracted all of the spiritual energy from the flame would be extinguished. The extracted spiritual energy would be refined into his body, while the majority would be sent into the space within the spirit pearl to increase the density of the spiritual energy. After putting away all of the formation discs in the cave, he put on the spirit-restricting silk cloak and rode the bone sword towards the south. There was no need to hide the fluctuations of spiritual energy on his body. Demonic cultivators of the Blood Devil clan used the blood essence of vicious beasts to aid their cultivation, so the spiritual energy on their bodies was extremely heterogeneous. Normal demonic cultivators had special attributes to their spiritual energy. Cui Ming had once stayed in Blood Devil City for a period of time. Wang Daoyuan had pried into Cui Ming's memories and had some understanding of Blood Devil City. After flying towards the south for 5,000 to 6,000 kilometers, he arrived at a valley filled with lush vegetation and strange rocks. There was a stream within the valley that flowed out from a karst cave. After entering the cave, he casually walked around in circles. Not long after, a muscular late-stage Violet Palace realm cultivator with bulging muscles leaped out from the crowd. Wang Daoyuan condensed his spiritual energy and punched out. The muscular man punched back. Both of them were forced back 5 to 6 steps. Their physical strength was equally matched. However, Wang Daoyuan only felt pain in his fist. The muscular man, on the other hand, wasn't injured in the slightest. He laughed, "Good kid. You're only a mid-Zifu realm cultivator, but your physical strength is on par with mine. Once you break through to the late Zifu realm, I won't be your match. You have the spiritual energy of the 5 elements, as well as many other special attributes. Your chi and blood far surpass others of the same level. How come I've never heard of such a powerful junior in the blood demon lineage before? What's your name? What are you doing here?" Wang Daoyuan shook his fist, saying, "My name is Zhou Ming. I heard that Blood Devil City is nearby, so I want to go in and take a look." The muscular man's face turned solemn. He asked, "Daoyu, who did you hear about Blood Devil City from?" Wang Daoyuan didn't mind. "Dead people." The muscular man laughed loudly. "Good. Little brother, you truly are a straightforward person. Since you are also a member of my Blood Devil lineage and are powerful enough, entering Blood Devil City shouldn't be a problem. Please follow me." After speaking, he led the way with Wang Daoyuan following behind him. Their physical bodies were powerful and their walking speed was extremely fast. However, they still took half the time it took to brew a cup of tea before arriving at a place covered by a formation. They followed the muscular man into the formation. Inside was a stone room, and an old Peak Zifu disciple was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the room. In front of him was a table with many jade slips placed on it. Seeing the muscular man bring Wang Daoyuan over, the old man asked, "What's your name? Have you been to Blood Devil City before?" Wang Daoyuan replied, "I'm Zhou Ming. This is my first time to Blood Devil City." The old man's divine sense entered a jade slip, then took out a round purple command medallion and sent his divine sense into it. After several breaths of time, he tossed the command medallion to Wang Daoyuan. "This is your command medallion. Remember not to lose it." Wang Daoyuan accepted the command medallion, then cupped his hands in thanks. In his heart he was secretly delighted. His plan to deceive everyone had succeeded. Even a peak Zifu disciple wasn't able to see any clues. As long as he didn't encounter a Jindan devil cultivator, there shouldn't be any problems. The old man waved his hand, and a tunnel appeared in the ground. "This is the entrance to Blood Devil City. You can enter with this command medallion." Chapter 460. Wang Daoyuan followed the tunnel downwards. This winding tunnel seemed to have been modified from the foundation of a natural karst cave. At every section of the tunnel, there were cultivators inspecting him. After walking for the time it took to brew a cup of tea, he arrived at the bottom of the tunnel. There were 2 Peak Zifu disciples guarding the door. Wang Daoyuan handed the command medallion to them. They used their divine sense to examine the command medallion, then returned it to Wang Daoyuan. Afterwards, the stone wall behind him opened and Wang Daoyuan walked in. Behind the stone wall was not a city but a small castle. There were more than 10 late and Peak Zifu disciples stationed inside. After Wang Daoyuan entered, a Peak Stage Zifu disciple walked out of the castle and came to the side of the stone wall. He asked Wang Daoyuan, "Fellow Taoist, your innate talent is extraordinary. Are you interested in joining the Blood Fiend army?" Supposedly, the Blood Demon army was the subordinate of the Jindan devil cultivators. They were usually responsible for managing the affairs of this underground space. Wang Daoyuan cupped his hands. "I'm an unaffiliated person who doesn't like restrictions. I came to Blood Demon City this time because I wanted to experience the holy land of us blood demons. I have no intention of joining the Blood Demon army. Please forgive me, Daoyu." Most devil cultivators didn't like restrictions. There were very few loose cultivators who were willing to join the Blood Demon army. This Peak Zifu disciple didn't want to force him. He smiled regretfully. "Since that's the case, I won't force you. In the future, if Daoyu changes your mind, you can come find me at any time." The two exchanged some pleasantries, then Wang Daoyuan circled around the castle and walked inside. After entering the stone wall, the space inside was no longer a karst cave. Instead, it had been forcibly carved out from the rock. The underground space was hundreds of meters high, and one couldn't see the end of it. The underground space was illuminated by many magic treasures, so it wasn't dark at all. There were plants all around and there were rivers and lakes on the ground. There were even some small hills and many caves had been carved out on the hills. Apart from the stone wall above and the stone pillars supporting the rock, there wasn't much difference between this place and the outside. Wang Daoyuan couldn't help but sigh. How much manpower and resources did it take to excavate such a large underground space? After passing the stone wall, they would arrive at the Blood Demon City after walking for more than 10 miles. The Blood Demon City was a square-shaped city with a side length of more than 50 miles. It was located at the northern edge of the entire underground space. The top and bottom of the city walls were connected to the rock stratum, and there were only a few gates that allowed entry and exit. Wang Daoyuan arrived in front of the city gate and entered after showing his token. The city was no different from an ordinary human cultivator city. There were all kinds of shops and some small devil cultivator clans. The Blood Demon City had a formation that could soften the violent spiritual energy. There were ordinary humans living in the city. It was said that their number was not small, possibly close to 1 million. They were all descendants of demonic cultivators. From birth to death, they were not allowed to leave Blood Demon City. These ordinary people were not of much help to cultivators, but they could give birth to offspring with spirit roots, which was an important source of devil cultivators. Thanks to Cui Ming's memories, he had gained some understanding of the Blood Devil City. However, he still pretended that he didn't know anything. He wandered around the city for a while before finally choosing an inn to stay in. Usually, he would inquire about all kinds of information at the place where he ate. After more than a month, he grasped some detailed information and began to go out to look for work. In the south of the Blood Demon City, there was a place where missions were issued. It was also a place to look for work. It was called the Mission Hall. Wang Daoyuan arrived in front of the mission hall and found that there were quite a lot of people. After all, devil cultivators also needed to cultivate. Cultivation required all kinds of resources and work was unavoidable. In the center of this place was a large hall with the words Mission Hall written on it. Around the hall, there was something similar to a bulletin board. These bulletin boards were refined from some kind of spirit jade, and the information on them was inscribed with spiritual sense. When many devil cultivators saw a suitable mission, they would take their tokens and go to the mission hall to receive the mission. For example, mining ores, breeding fierce beasts, looking after spiritual fields, refining tools, alchemy, and so on. The work of mining ores was particularly suitable for Wang Daoyuan. After all, he had come to look for spiritual fire. The metal attribute spiritual fire was either in a spiritual vein or in an ore vein. To look for spiritual fire, mining ores was the most suitable. Cui Ming had done this work before, but he was not strong enough and was bullied in the mines. He could not earn any spiritual stones there, so he left. Wang Daoyuan went to the mining mission board and used his spiritual sense to check the mission information. One of the information was, mining innate ferocious gold. For every kilogram of innate ferocious gold, a reward of 1,000 spiritual stones. No limit. Wang Daoyuan was somewhat astonished. He said in surprise, "There's even innate ferocious gold?" A nearby late-stage Zifu disciple laughed. "What's so great about innate ferocious gold? This blood demon city also has Tai fine gold. It's just that it's not open to the public. Otherwise, there would be so many people trying to mine it that their heads would burst." When Wang Daoyuan heard about Tai fine gold, he was somewhat delighted. If he could get a large amount of Tai fine gold, it would be easy to upgrade the White Tiger blade. Right now it was better to go to innate ferocious gold. With a large amount of innate ferocious gold, it would be helpful to upgrade the White Tiger blade. He went to the mission hall and gave his token to an elderly late-stage Zifu disciple. Accept the innate ferocious gold mission. The elderly cultivator was astonished, but he did not say anything. He used his spiritual sense to inscribe some information on the token. Then he gave him a jade slip and said, "This is the details of the mission. Just do it according to the requirements. If you don't meet the minimum requirements, you can't leave the mine, and you can't accept other missions." The other demonic cultivators lining up to accept missions also had looks of disbelief on their faces. Some people whispered, "Is this person a raw melon egg? He actually dares to accept the innate ferocious gold mission. That place is filled with people who are punished for their crimes. Out of 10 people who go in, 9 don't come out. It's hard to cultivate there." Wang Daoyuan did not take their words seriously. He took the jade slip and checked the details, then left the mission hall. This innate ferocious gold mine was more than 500 kilometers west of Blood Fiend City. In order to prevent people from stealing the ores, ordinary mines required spatial treasures to be checked. Wang Daoyuan put the interspatial ring, most of the storage bags and spirit beast bags into the space of the spiritual pearl. Only 2 storage pouches were left, containing the bone sword as well as some miscellaneous pills and talismans. He had also put away the soft armor and the soul-binding silk cloak. Right now he was no different from an ordinary poor demonic cultivator. He rode his sword to the entrance of the innate ferocious gold mine and showed the token to a fierce-looking peak Zifu realm cultivator. He took the token and checked it, then said, "Leave the token with me. Let me check the storage bag. No one will care what you do in the mine, but when you come out, you have to hand over 500 kilograms of innate ferocious gold. Don't even think about escaping. There are formations everywhere you can go. If you have the ability to dig another tunnel, pretend I didn't say anything." Wang Daoyuan did not think much of it. He was familiar with digging tunnels. He had dug hundreds of kilometers when he was at Foundation Establishment. He had never seen a rock layer that the dust-returning flame could not burn through. After finding the spiritual fire, it would not be difficult to dig a tunnel and escape from the underground space. He took off the 2 storage bags at his waist and handed them to the fierce-looking cultivator. After checking the storage bags, he cursed, "Another pauper." With that, he returned the bone sword and storage bag to Wang Daoyuan. He took all the miscellaneous items. Although this guy was greedy, he knew his limits and did not take the only Dharma artifact. Then he opened the door of the mine and Wang Daoyuan walked in. The moment he entered the mine, he felt a dense malevolent aura rush towards him. The ore near the entrance of the mine had long been dug out, but there was still such a dense malevolent aura. How strong was the malevolent aura around the ore? Cultivators below the Zifu realm would quickly be affected by the malevolent aura if they stayed here. Although the consciousness of Zifu realm cultivators would not be affected easily, their bodies would be corroded if they lived here for a long time. No wonder so many people were shocked when he accepted the innate ferocious gold mine mission. One had to worry about harming their bodies while cultivating here. It only consumed spirit energy and could not be replenished. Ordinary cultivators would not be able to survive here. Chapter 461. Those who could survive in this mine for a long time either had extremely strong bodies that could resist the corrosion of the baleful aura, or they could use the baleful aura to cultivate. Regardless of the type, they definitely weren't weak. Wang Daoyuan's metal attribute spiritual energy already contained some baleful aura, so it wouldn't be a problem for him to absorb some more. Baleful aura was derived from metal attribute spiritual energy and yin energy. His fire attribute spiritual energy also contained pure yang energy, so he wasn't afraid of baleful aura. Even if he absorbed a bit more baleful aura, he could still consume it. After entering the mine, he didn't walk very far before he encountered two forks in the road. There was no difference in the concentration of baleful aura between the two forks. He chose the left one. After walking for less than half a kilometer, he encountered another 3 forks in the road. He continued to take the left one. More and more forks appeared, appearing less and less regularly. It was hard to say when a fork would suddenly appear. The deeper he went, the thicker the baleful aura became. Wang Daoyuan had already gone dozens of kilometers into the mine. He couldn't remember how many forks he had taken. The baleful aura here was too dense, affecting the soul of a Zifu realm cultivator. The baleful aura could also interfere with the detection of spiritual sense. Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense was able to detect things up to 50 kilometers away. Here he could only detect things up to 1,000 meters away. To a Zifu realm cultivator, this distance wasn't much different from having their face pressed against each other. Adding on the fact that the mine was extremely winding, the stone walls were even more effective against spiritual sense than the baleful aura. If a cultivator was lying in ambush in one of the forks and wanted to ambush him, he wouldn't have much time to react. Wang Daoyuan gripped the bone sword in his hand, ready to summon the Xuanwu shield at any time to deal with a possible ambush. All of a sudden, his divine sense detected a wisp of spiritual power fluctuations about 200 meters in front of him. He immediately used the sword shadow godlight technique, creating 10 sword shadows to protect his body. He asked, "Who's there? If you don't come out, I'll attack." The trace of spiritual energy fluctuation was immediately retracted. Wang Daoyuan controlled a sword shadow to attack the source of the fluctuation. The sword shadow arrived in an instant, and the person hiding didn't dare to continue hiding. He took out a long sword and broke the sword shadow. He smiled and said, "Daoyu's spiritual sense is very sharp. Even in this kind of place you can still find me." This person was wearing a black cloak. There were almost no blood chi fluctuations on his body, and his spirit energy fluctuations were extremely weak. It was impossible to tell what cultivation level he was at. The hand that held the sword was all skin and bones, and the skin was still grayish-black. Wang Daoyuan condensed another sword shadow and asked, "What does Daoyu want? Do you want to fight to the death or get out of my way?" The black-clothed man replied, "Of course I'm making way for you. This old man has been corroded by this evil chi until I'm neither a human nor a ghost. My spiritual power has long been exhausted, and I can only rely on my remaining Zhenyuan to support myself. How can I be Daoyu's opponent?" This person's spiritual energy had been exhausted, and he could only rely on his true essence, so he wouldn't be able to last for long. In his eyes, he was just food that could prolong his life. He would never let him go. Fighting was inevitable. His body had already deteriorated to such an extent. Once his soul was injured, he would probably die immediately. It was not possible to refine a clone. However, the black-clothed man had stayed in this mine for quite some time. He could fish for information from the black-clothed man and figure out the situation in the mine. Wang Daoyuan asked, "Since Daoyu can't stay here any longer, have you thought of leaving?" The black-clothed man shook his head and smiled bitterly. "I was imprisoned here because I committed a crime. If I want to leave, I'll have to pay 5 times the amount of heaven ferocious gold to atone. There's a Tier 4 array formation guarding outside the cave. Previously, many Daoyu tried to force their way out, but they were all killed by the array formation. This heaven ferocious gold vein has been mined for close to 10,000 years. How much or can there be left? I've been here for more than 20 years and have only dug up 5 kilograms. After being corroded by the evil chi for 20 years, life and death are only a matter of time. I wonder if Daoyu has any spiritual items on him. I'm willing to use all the heaven ferocious gold I have to exchange for some spiritual items with Daoyu." Wang Daoyuan shook his head. "When I came in, the medicinal pills and other spiritual items I had on me were all confiscated by the guards. Now all that's left is this bone sword and 2 empty storage pouches. Everything else is gone." The black-clothed man was somewhat puzzled. "Daoyu, didn't you commit a crime and get sent here?" How can you bring medicinal pills and other spiritual items here? Wang Daoyuan replied, I accepted a mission from Blood Fiend City's mission hall and came here to mine for Heaven Ferocious Gold. I saw that the reward for the mission was 500 kilograms of Heaven Ferocious Gold and 1,000 spirit stones. It was quite generous, so I came. The black-clothed man had a mocking look on his face. That mission has been hung up in Blood Fiend City for thousands of years. In the past it was indeed an excellent mission. At that time, given the power of Zifu disciples like us, digging up 500 kilograms of Heaven Ferocious Gold really didn't take much effort. But in the past few thousand years, the Heaven Ferocious Gold vein has been completely mined out. Only in the deepest parts will there be a chance to find some ore and refine a few taels of Heaven Ferocious Gold. Completing the mission can take hundreds of years. But the baleful aura there is extremely strong. Very few people can withstand it, and even those who can last for 10 years are few and far between. Now, although this place is called the Heaven Ferocious Gold Mine, it's actually a prison. It's specially used to imprison cultivators like me who have committed crimes. As for why the mission hasn't been revoked, perhaps it's because the Heaven Ferocious Gold Mine's guardian wants to deceive someone like Dao Yu who doesn't know the truth. Before entering the mine, they'll use the excuse of inspecting the items as an excuse to get some oil. If they're lucky enough to encounter a cultivator who can dig up 500 kilograms of Heaven Ferocious Gold, they'll make a huge profit. Dao Yu just entered and still has a lot of spiritual energy in his body, and he's also a pentaspirit veins cultivator. I wonder if you can give me a bit of metal-type spiritual energy? I'm willing to use Heaven Ferocious Gold in exchange. Wang Daoyuan nodded. How much Heaven Ferocious Gold is Dao Yu willing to give, and how much spiritual energy do you want to exchange for it? Hearing Dao Yu's intention to exchange, the black-clothed man hurriedly untied the storage pouch at his waist. He said excitedly, all of my Heaven Ferocious Gold is here. There's a bit more than 17 kilograms in total. Please kindly accept it, Dao Yu. As for spiritual energy, it'll be fine as long as it's comparable to 10 mid-grade spirit stones. The total amount of spiritual energy in 10 mid-grade spirit stones was roughly 20% of an ordinary Zifu disciple's total spiritual energy. 17 kilograms of Heaven Ferocious Gold, even if it was only mid-grade third tier, was worth at least 100,000 spirit stones. This place was near a fourth-tier spirit vein. If there was high-grade third-tier or even low-grade fourth-tier Heaven Ferocious Gold, its value would be even higher. Wang Daoyuan nodded. As you wish, Dao Yu. The black-clothed man tossed over a storage pouch. Demonic cultivators weren't easy to deal with, especially those on the verge of death. There was definitely a trap in this storage pouch. Wang Daoyuan had long since prepared for it. When the storage pouch was still 50 meters away from him, he immediately used the cloud mist escape to travel 1.5 kilometers through the air. The moment he escaped, his storage bag exploded, and black smoke gushed out from it. This black smoke contained an extremely dense baleful aura, and it seemed to be mixed with corpse poison. Soon after, over 100-inch-long poison needles shot out from the black smoke. Over 10 of them flew towards Wang Daoyuan. 10 sword shadows flew out from Wang Daoyuan's side to block the poison needles. In the end, he lost 3 sword shadows to shoot down all the needles. He felt a lingering fear. If he hadn't been prepared, this move would have been enough to take his life. Seeing that his attack had failed, the black-clothed man turned and left. Wang Daoyuan replenished his sword shadows and used them to chase after the old man. He himself followed behind the sword shadows. The black-clothed man took out a coffin. When the coffin opened, there was a high-grade third-tier corpse inside. Looking at the corpse's attire, it should be a wandering cultivator of Blood Demon City. This corpse had bulging muscles and silver skin. It should be one of the legendary silver-armored corpses. Silver-armored corpses had extremely strong defensive abilities. Cultivators of the same level would find it hard to break through their defenses. Using the corpses of blood demons to refine a silver-armored corpse would only increase its defensive abilities. In addition, the baleful aura here was extremely dense. This corpse's strength was probably comparable to a peak Zifu disciple. The 10 sword shadows struck the silver-armored corpse, producing a metallic sound. The silver-armored corpse was actually unharmed. The black-clothed man let out a strange laugh. This time, Dao Yu won't be able to escape. It's best if you give up resisting. I haven't tasted fresh blood for many years. If I'm happy, I might even let your soul go into reincarnation. Chapter 462. Elite zombies were divided into iron-armored zombies, silver-armored zombies and gold-armored zombies. Iron plate corpses were just slightly tougher than regular refined corpses of the same level. It was nothing special. The silver-armored corpse's body was extremely strong. It was difficult for cultivators of the same level to break through it, but they generally had weaknesses. As long as one could attack its weakness, the entire silver-armored corpse could be crippled. If it was refined into a metal elite zombie, it would have no weaknesses. Only absolute strength could destroy it. Although silver-armored corpses had weaknesses, they were usually extremely secretive. Other than the person who refined them, no one knew their exact location. As for this silver-armored corpse, its strength should be comparable to the peak of the Zifu realm. If he couldn't find his weakness, even if he used the 5 elements devil subduing seal, it would be difficult for him to win. After all, the 5 elements devil subduing seal specialized in subduing fiendish cultivators and devils. It did not have any special effect on the silver-armored corpse. However, no matter how strong the silver-armored corpse was, it still needed someone to control it. Rather than fighting the silver-armored corpse to the death, he might as well kill the black-clothed man. When the master of the corpse refiner was killed, he would enter a berserk state and his strength would increase greatly. However, without any intelligence to speak of, it was not difficult to deal with. Moreover, this berserk state would not last for too long, and he would soon fall into a deep sleep. As long as it was not stimulated, it could continue sleeping. The silver-armored corpse pounced towards Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan put away his bone sword and took out his white tiger blade and black tortoise shield. When the silver-armored corpse pounced over, Wang Daoyuan used cloud mist escape and flitted past the right side of the silver-armored corpse. With the black tortoise shield in his left hand and the white tiger blade in his right, he slashed across the side of the silver-armored corpse's waist. The white tiger blade left a shallow wound on the waist of the silver-armored corpse with an ear-piercing sound of metal scraping against each other. The sharpness of the white tiger blade, coupled with Wang Daoyuan's physical strength and attainments in the way of the sword, could only barely cut open the silver-armored corpse's skin. Although the silver-armored corpse was a refined corpse and its body was stiff, its speed was not slow at all. After his attack was dodged, he turned around and threw a punch at Wang Daoyuan. Wang Daoyuan used the black tortoise shield to receive the punch. The strength of a third-tier upper-grade refined corpse was completely dependent on its physical strength. It was not enough to break the black tortoise shield, but the impact was not small. Wang Daoyuan was knocked back several feet with his shield. He only stopped when he hit the stone wall of the tunnel. Fortunately, the 5 spirits' immortal transformation art tempered the body from the inside out. His internal organs were also very strong and could withstand the impact. He only felt his blood and chi boiling, but it was nothing serious. If it were an ordinary cultivator, they would definitely suffer from internal injuries if they took the silver-armored corpse's punch head-on. Seeing this, the man in black was pleasantly surprised. Daio's body is so strong. I thought I was lucky enough to get a metal-type cultivator and refine him into a silver-armored corpse. I didn't expect that I would encounter another good material for refining a silver-armored corpse today. It seems that I can't drink your blood anymore. It would be more useful to refine you into a silver-armored corpse. With that, he took out a silver sword and attacked Wang Daoyuan. This was a high-grade, third-grade magic artifact. Judging from how effortlessly he was controlling it, this person should be a late-stage Zifu disciple. Wang Daoyuan brandished the white tiger blade in his hand and chopped at the flying sword. The flying sword was actually intact. When the two swords collided, the silver sword even burst out with a strong baleful aura. It should be refined from heavenly demon gold. The man in black withdrew his sword and the silver-armored corpse pounced over again. Wang Daoyuan used the cloud mist escape again and moved closer to the man in black while dodging the silver-armored corpse's attack. This man in black looked like he had exhausted all his chi and didn't have much spiritual power left. No matter how he looked at it, he was easier to deal with than the silver-armored corpse. He poured a large amount of spiritual power into the white tiger blade and slashed at the man in black. The man in black blocked with his sword. Wang Daoyuan let go of the white tiger blade and punched his right fist with fire attribute spiritual power at the man's head. The man in black's left hand collided with Wang Daoyuan's fist and was knocked back more than 3 meters. At this time, the skin on the man's left fist was burned by pure yang qi and emitted a rotten smell. Wang Daoyuan's right fist was also left with a pitch-black mark. A strong corrosive yin qi followed his meridians and drilled into his body. This was the symptom of corpse qi entering the body. He circulated his fire attribute spiritual power and used pure yang qi to burn the corpse qi. This person obviously still had spiritual wisdom and almost no qi and qi, but there was still a little bit. Logically speaking, he should be a human. However, a living person shouldn't be so afraid of pure yang qi and shouldn't have such a strong corpse qi. Recalling the records left behind by the 10,000 corpse Taoist master, this guy should be half human and half corpse or a living corpse. Human cultivators forcibly refined corpse qi into their bodies and merged it with qi and blood to strengthen their bodies. Once the corpse qi passed through qi and blood, this person could be considered a living corpse. This kind of transformation was almost irreversible. After becoming a living corpse, the body would continuously transform into a refined corpse. Even if the body completely turned into a refined corpse, the mind would not be affected. The soul or divine soul would still have the characteristics of a living person. A refined corpse completely merged the body and divine soul, but the divine soul couldn't completely merge with the body. The lifespan of the divine soul didn't change. When it reached the end, it still had to enter reincarnation. Without the divine soul, a half-corpse would become the same as an ordinary refined corpse. Half-corpses had strong bodies and were more flexible than refined corpses. They could better cultivate the Tao of corpse control, so their strength couldn't be underestimated. He refined himself into a half-corpse and suffered the pain of corpse qi entering his bones. If it wasn't a last resort, no one would be so cruel to themselves. He probed, "Dao, you really is a ruthless person. You actually refined yourself into a half-corpse." Hearing this, the black-clothed man was stunned and immediately said, "Dao, you really is experienced and knowledgeable. You actually know about half-corpses. I've been trapped here for more than 200 years and should have died long ago. It's just that I haven't taken my revenge and am unwilling to die like this. In my early years, I obtained a corpse refining inheritance and killed other cultivators to refine them into refined corpses for my use. My body couldn't resist the erosion of the baleful aura, so I borrowed the corpse qi of this silver-armored corpse to refine myself into a half-corpse. Now, I'm not far from the end of my life. It's impossible for me to advance further on my Tao path. I just want to leave this damned place, return to Blood Demon City and slaughter my enemies. Your body is strong. If you refine yourself into a silver-armored corpse, you may be able to help me escape." Saying this, he pounced towards him with the silver-armored corpse. Wang Daoyuan used the cloud mist escape again to dodge the attack. Going on like this wasn't a solution. Although refined corpses and half-corpses were difficult to cultivate in terms of endurance, they far surpassed human cultivators. Although this half-corpse strength wasn't as good as his, it was impossible to kill him instantly under the protection of the silver-armored corpse. If this continued, he would die without a doubt. Although the scarlet yang real fire restrained refined corpses, the baleful aura here was dense and would offset the power of the scarlet yang real fire. However, he could use the Gui water death flame to attack the half-corpse. The half-corpse still had the divine soul. The Gui water death flame had the effect of burning the divine sense and soul. It was still very destructive to him. Drawing out a wisp of Gui water death flame from the space of the spirit pearl, he continuously injected water attribute spiritual power. The Gui water death flame burned fiercely. At the same time, he used the divine fire burning sky technique to control the Gui water death flame. After receiving the inheritance of the 100 spirits true lord, the power of the divine fire burning sky technique greatly increased, and the power of the flame could be increased by 4 to 5 times. The Bai Fang Phantom carried the Gui water death flame and rushed towards the half-corpse. The half-corpse probed the divine sense into the Gui water death flame. A black flame followed his divine sense to burn his forehead. The half-corpse knew that this thing attacked the divine soul and immediately let the silver-armored corpse block in front. The silver-armored corpse didn't have a divine soul, and the soul essence was also integrated with the body. The Gui water death flame couldn't hurt his soul essence and couldn't cause substantial damage. However, the corpse qi was also derived from yin qi. The Gui water death flame could still burn part of the silver-armored corpse's corpse qi. The half-corpse controlled the flying sword and constantly attacked him. While Wang Daoyuan dodged the attack, he constantly increased the input of spiritual power, making the Gui water death flame burn more vigorously. The black flame quickly wrapped the silver-armored corpse's whole body. The half-corpse's intelligence wasn't low. He quickly saw that Wang Daoyuan's purpose was to use the Gui water death flame to explore the silver-armored corpse's weakness. His divine sense didn't dare to touch the Gui water death flame. The refined corpse couldn't cast spells and couldn't quickly extinguish the fire. Soon Wang Daoyuan noticed that the silver-armored corpse's navel was abnormal. The corpse qi in other places could be quickly replenished after being burned by the Gui water death flame, but the navel couldn't be replenished. The weakness of this silver-armored corpse was at the navel. Chapter 463. Seeing that Wang Daoyuan had found the silver-armored corpse's weakness, the half-corpse took out his flying sword to attack. Wang Daoyuan used the black tortoise shield and white tiger blade to catch the flying sword and used his consciousness to interfere with the half-corpse's control of the flying sword. The half-corpse's body could not nourish the soul well, so his consciousness was not strong. With his consciousness suppressed, he could not control the flying sword freely. Wang Daoyuan took out a universe ring from the space of the soul pearl and wrapped the flying sword with the soul-binding silk cloak, cutting off the connection with his consciousness and forcefully storing the flying sword into the universe ring. Without the flying sword, the half-corpse's strength was greatly reduced. He wanted to get rid of it, but the silver-armored corpse pounced over again. It seemed that if he did not get rid of the silver-armored corpse, he would not be able to take down this half-corpse. Although the silver-armored corpse's navel was its weakness, it was not something that could be broken so easily. Wang Daoyuan held the white tiger blade with both hands and injected a large amount of spirit energy into it. Using the sword shadow divine light technique, 10 sword shadows opened up a path in front. With the black tortoise shield in front of him, he used the cloud escape and attacked the silver-armored corpse's navel. Now that he had taken the path of body refinement, his physical strength had increased greatly. With the white tiger blade in hand, his physical strength would be added to its power. When using a flying sword to kill enemies, it only used spirit energy and consciousness. Compared to wielding a long sword, its power was still much weaker. Non-body refinement cultivators did not have physical strength, so the difference in power was not great. Generally they would not fight with a long sword. But body refinement cultivators still liked to use a long sword when attacking with all their strength. Seeing that he had seen through the silver-armored corpse's weakness, he planned to kill it in one blow. The half-corpse rushed up, wanting to help the silver-armored corpse out. Wang Daoyuan controlled the Beiyuan phantom and pounced on the half-corpse. The Beiyuan phantom was now made up of black flames. Once touched by something with a soul, the soul would definitely be damaged. The half-corpse did not dare to go forward, and without his flying sword, he was no match for the Beiyuan phantom. The silver-armored corpse wanted to dodge, but he could not fly. It was impossible to escape Wang Daoyuan's high-level escape technique with his inflexible limbs. The 10 sword shadows and the white tiger blade struck the silver-armored corpse's navel without any deviation. The strength of the silver-armored corpse's navel was also extremely high. The 10 sword shadows could only penetrate an inch deep. Following closely behind, the white tiger blade pierced half a foot deep into the silver-armored corpse's spine. Under the pain, the silver-armored corpse attacked Wang Daoyuan with all its might. Unfortunately, its weakness had been exposed, and its physical strength was rapidly declining. With the black tortoise shield in hand, Wang Daoyuan resisted with all his might and was not pushed back. He infused a large amount of fire-attributed spirit energy into the white tiger blade and infused it into the silver-armored corpse. The pure yang qi of the fire attribute quickly corroded the silver-armored corpse's internal organs. The silver-armored corpse roared again and again, desperately attacking Wang Daoyuan. At this point it was already dead for sure, so Wang Daoyuan did not take its attack head-on. He drew his sword and retreated, dodging the attack. The silver-armored corpse's body emitted a rotten smell, and the silver light on its body gradually disappeared. The Gui water death flame continued to burn on its body. In less than half a cup of tea's time, the corpse qi within the silver-armored corpse was burned to nothing. The silver-armored corpse had become an ordinary mummy. It couldn't even be considered a refined corpse. The half-corpse was chased around by the Beiyuan's phantoms. After being refined into a half-corpse, its strength was not without loss. Without much spirit energy in its body, the power of the spells it cast was extremely poor. The least affected was flying swords, but his flying swords were gone. Those half-baked spells were not enough to threaten the divine sky-burning technique. Although the physical body was strong, it was still not very useful against spiritual fire. The half-corpse hurriedly begged for mercy. "Dao, spare my life. All I ask for in this life is nothing more than revenge. I only ask that Dao you can help me get out and take revenge. After that, I am willing to destroy my soul and leave behind a complete corpse." After a half-corpse dies, its physical body and corpse qi will perfectly merge. It is not impossible to refine it into a metal-armored corpse. Wang Daoyuan said disdainfully, "A metal-armored corpse is nothing. After I form my Jin Dan, a metal-armored corpse can be destroyed with a flip of my hand. For me, cultivating the Tao of corpse is not very useful. It also damages the physical body. I disdain it." Finished speaking, he controlled the Baifang's phantoms to wrap around the half-corpse's body, but did not directly attack its spirit. The half-corpse said again, "This mine is extremely complicated. The fiendish qi and rocks block the consciousness. Even if a Jindan cultivator came down, it would be impossible to figure out the situation in a short time. And I have stayed in this mine for more than 200 years. I know it like the back of my hand. Daio's strength is not bad. If you cooperate with me, we can definitely escape from this damned place." Wang Daoyuan's face was full of disdain. "If you want to understand the mine, there is no need to keep you." Finished speaking, a soul-severing blade struck towards the half-corpse's forehead. Previously he thought it was a lamp that had run out of oil and could not be refined into a doppelganger. Now that he knew it was a half-corpse, there was naturally no problem. A half-corpse could not be killed casually. A half-corpse's violet palace was not nourished by a physical body. No matter how strong it was before, it could barely maintain it now. This soul-severing blade even held back its strength, but it still broke through the half-corpse's violet palace and injured its spirit. Then he used the soul-severing blade to break the half-corpse's spirit and injected it into the subsoul before storing it in the spiritual pearl. As for the silver-armored corpse's corpse, he burned it with fire. Half a day later, the half-corpse doppelganger finished fusing with the subsoul. Wang Daoyuan pried into the half-corpse's memories and found out that the half-corpse's name was Zheng Ping. He was born in the Blood Demon City and his parents were ordinary people. He also married and had children in the Blood Demon City and joined the Blood Demon Army. Later on, he offended a high-ranking member of the Blood Demon Army and was framed to this damned place. His family was also slaughtered. His physical body was not strong and could not withstand the fiendish qi in the mine, so he had no choice but to refine himself into a half-corpse. In this mine, there were 5 powerful cultivators at the peak of the Violet Palace realm. Although his personal strength was not strong, he could still be on equal footing with them by relying on the silver-armored corpse. The 6 of them each occupied a territory and did not interfere with each other. Zheng Ping even opened up a cave abode in this space as a place to stay. He had collected a lot of infernal gold over the years, including low-grade 4th-grade infernal gold, which was placed in the cave abode. Wang Daoyuan had just gone through a big battle and his spiritual sense was exhausted. He needed to find a safe place to recuperate. He released his doppelganger Zheng Ping from the spiritual pearl and had him lead the way to his cave abode. Zheng Ping was proficient in refining and array formations, especially in array formations. He was actually at the high-grade 3rd grade and was also at the middle-grade 3rd grade in refining. With his attainments in array formations, his cave abode had never been discovered by anyone. With him leading the way, they soon arrived at the entrance of the cave abode. This was an ordinary stone wall in the mine. Even with Wang Daoyuan's spiritual sense, he could not see anything special about it. Zheng Ping's doppelganger took out a token. The token flashed and the stone wall in front of them retreated, revealing an entrance that was 1 foot wide and 1 foot tall. Wang Daoyuan followed behind Zheng Ping and entered the cave abode. It was a completely different world inside. It was a stone room that was 300 feet wide and more than 100 feet tall. The furnishings were simple. There was a stone couch and a stone table. There were 3 storage bags on the table. One of them contained 500 to 600 caddies of high-grade 3rd grade infernal gold. When he opened the second storage bag, a thick malevolent aura surged towards him. Even with his physique he could not withstand it. There were a few fist-sized infernal gold pieces that weighed more than 15 caddies in total. He hurriedly fastened the storage bag and kept it in the spiritual pearl. There was also a storage bag that contained a few dermic weapons of fiendish cultivators. Since they were not of much use to him, he kept them in the spiritual pearl as well. He took out a spirit isolation formation disc from the spiritual pearl and handed it to his doppelganger. The spirit isolation formation could isolate the spirit chi of the 9 elements. However, it was not very effective against the malevolent aura and could only weaken it slightly. Wang Daoyuan took out a few black jade lotus seeds and consumed them. He drank a few mouthfuls of spirit wine and meditated to recover his spirit energy and spirit consciousness. There were no traces of metal elemental spiritual fire in the mine that Zheng Ping controlled. He did not dare to provoke the other 5 peak Violet Palace realm cultivators. The fact that they could live a normal life here meant that they were all ruthless people. It was best not to provoke them. However, he could not return empty-handed after entering a treasure trove. Zheng Ping knew of a place where he could still find infernal gold. Even the 4th grade infernal gold could be found there. Chapter 464. After Wang Daoyuan recovered his spirit power and consciousness, he was not in a hurry to dig for the heaven-hellish gold. After all, the experts in the mine all had their own territories. Other cultivators would not come to Zheng Ping's territory. His main goal was to find the metal attribute spirit fire. Although Zheng Ping did not find any traces of the spirit fire, he could not give up. He still had to work hard. Using the spirit-seeking compass to explore the surroundings, even if he could not find the spirit fire, he could dig up more fourth-grade heaven-hellish gold. The spirit-seeking compass in the past was a second-grade Dharma artifact and had a closer detection range. Moreover, it was severely affected by the evil aura in the mine and could not be used. He was now a third-grade weapon refiner and had 2 weapon refiner clones. He could refine a third-grade mid-grade spirit-seeking compass. Of course, this spirit-seeking compass could not be compared to the one Shen Jiuxiao of the Archaic Arcanum sect took out when exploring the Hidden Cloud continent. In terms of using compasses, the Archaic Arcanum sect was the best. Even Shen Jiuxiao's natal Dharma artifact was the mysterious yin-yang compass. The functions of compasses and other things would be affected in this kind of mineral vein. Especially spiritual items with strong evil aura like the heaven-hellish gold, which interfered greatly with the compass. In order to accurately detect the mines and find the metal attribute spirit fire, he had to make some improvements to the spirit-seeking compass. An ordinary spirit-seeking compass could search for the 5-element spirit qi, but his target was only metal attribute spirit qi and evil aura. It was not important to him whether or not he could search for spirit qi of other attributes. He just needed to determine the concentration of metal attribute spirit qi and evil aura. This meant that he had to modify a compass specifically to detect metal attribute spirit qi and evil aura. When Taoist Lei Yan was copying the legacy of the ancestors, Wang Daoyuan had copied down all of the tool runes. Among the copied patterns, some could determine the concentration of spirit qi and automatically search for the place with the highest concentration of spirit qi. To refine such a compass, there was no need to start from scratch. He only needed to use an ordinary third-grade spirit-seeking compass as a base and modify it with such patterns. In the space of the Spirit Pearl, Tu Yuming and Zheng Ping, the 2 third-grade weapon refiners, worked together and had 40 times the time. It was not difficult to modify a compass. He didn't need to improve the compass to perfection as long as it could be used. Before the improvement of the spirit-seeking compass was completed, Wang Daoyuan had nothing to do but cultivate, so he paid more attention to the situation in the space of the spirit bead. The purple cloud dragon pattern ginseng that he had planted before exploring True Monarch 100 Spirits abode was already over 1,000 years old. It had been harvested by his clone and stored in a jade box. A new batch had been planted, but it would take more than 10 years to harvest. These few years, Wang Daoyuan had always been busy and did not have time to refine the purple rhyme pill either. Now, staying in this broken mine, not to mention the violent spiritual energy, there was also an extremely dense baleful aura. The baleful aura would affect one's soul. If one were to refine pills in a state where one's mind was not completely clear, an explosion would definitely be unavoidable. Since he still had some purple rhythm pills on hand, it wouldn't be a problem even if he didn't refine any pills for now. The concentration of spiritual qi in the space of the spiritual orb had already reached the level of upper grade 3rd stage. The peach tree sapling that nurtured the spiritual fire of life was also beginning to grow slowly. Its height had already reached 5 to 6 inches, and the spiritual fire of life was also becoming more vigorous. There were many spiritual objects around the spiritual fire of life. For example, the hidden cloud tea tender branch that he obtained from True Monarch 100 Spirits' small medicine garden last time was also planted here. The tender shoot back then had already become a tea tree more than 3 feet tall, and its grade had also already reached lower grade 3rd stage. The Gui water death flame did not have much activity, but the surrounding Yellow Springs willow grew a little. Wang Daoyuan had no use for the Yellow Springs willow for the time being, so he had never cared about it. The changes around the dust-returning flame were not small. The earth attribute spirit vein continuously produced soil, forming a circular mound with a diameter of 1 foot and a height of more than 2 feet below the dust-returning flame. The dust-returning flame burned quietly above the mound, but it did not affect the surrounding spiritual plants either. Around the scarlet yang true fire, several transplanted blood fire hibiscus had also grown a lot. The largest one was originally an old branch. Now it was already 20 to 30 feet tall, and the trunk's diameter was also more than a foot. The other blood fire hibiscus were all young shoots on the old branches, and now they were only 7 to 8 feet tall. The red-feathered crow, who had been staying beside the scarlet yang true fire, gave Wang Daoyuan a headache. It had been 8 or 9 years since it hatched, and it had been more than 300 years in the space of the spirit bead. After more than 300 years, the fledgling was still only the size of an adult's fist. The fluff on the body was black and the fluff on both wings was red. There was no sign of growing feathers at all, and it still looked like a fledgling. Its cultivation was only a little higher than when it first came out of the shell. It was now middle grade rank 2, which was equivalent to the middle stage of foundation establishment. Even if it was a real divine beast, it should not grow so slowly. These years, the red-feathered crow's life had been good. Every day, it ate the pine nuts of the red-scaled pine. The pine nuts it ate added up to dozens of middle-stage foundation establishment cultivators. Needless to say, it soaked in the scarlet yang true fire every day, and there were a few blood fire hibiscus next to it. This was the most suitable environment for the red-feathered crow to live in. Even the 100 Spirits Lord could not provide such a good environment for the red-feathered crow. The 100 Spirits Lord's beast-taming inheritance was not in his hands, and there was no way to know the reason why the red-feathered crow was not growing. He could only ask his clone Chui Ming to check the 10,000 Spirits Atlas and the Beiyuan records. He wanted to see if other spiritual beasts with the bloodline of divine beasts had similar situations. In the end, there was no such record in the Beiyuan records. In the 10,000 Spirits Atlas, he found some ways to raise other demon birds. The inheritance of the 1,000 Spirits sect might have come from the top force of the Valley of Beasts. In terms of demon beasts, the 1,000 Spirits sect was quite authoritative. According to the 10,000 Spirits Atlas, most demon birds were proud and unwilling to obey their masters easily. To completely tame them, one must start with the eggs of demon birds. It also emphasized that demon birds with extraordinary bloodlines, after the fledgling hatched, must not throw away the eggshell. This was because there might be something on the eggshell related to its bloodline. When the demon bird grew up and could swallow the eggshell could be fed to it. This would help the demon bird awaken its bloodline and grow quickly. Without the eggshell, ordinary demon birds might be fine. However, demon birds with extraordinary bloodlines were prone to slow growth and difficult to awaken their bloodline. This time, Wang Daoyuan could be sure that the reason why the scarlet-feathered black chick could not grow was because of the lack of eggshell. Fortunately, he felt that the scarlet-feathered black chick's eggshell was quite extraordinary and might have some use, so he kept it properly. Now it really came in handy. He ordered his clone Chui Ming to take out the storage bag with the eggshell. He took out the eggshell and put it next to the scarlet-feathered black chick's mouth. When the little guy saw the eggshell, its eyes widened and it pounced on it, desperately pecking at the eggshell. The scarlet-feathered black chick's egg itself was the size of a goose egg, and there was not much in the eggshell, so it was quickly pecked clean by the chick. After eating the eggshell, the chick walked to the side of the red sun primordial fire, clung to the flame and fell asleep. As time passed, the scarlet-feathered black chick's body did not change much, but short reddish-gold feathers grew on its wings and tail. 2 years later, the scarlet-feathered black chick finally woke up. Its feathers were already more than an inch long, and the fluff had not completely faded. As soon as it woke up, it desperately ate the pine nuts of the red scale pine. Wang Daoyuan used his divine sense to explore the scarlet-feathered black chick's body. Although the little guy looked like a reincarnated hungry ghost, there was no problem with its body. Seeing that its new feathers were reddish gold, Wang Daoyuan named it Red Feather. These 2 years were equivalent to 80 years in the space of the Spirit Pearl. Zheng Ping and Tu Yoming's clones were not idle, and they also had some results in improving the spirit-seeking compass. Using the heaven ferocious gold as the raw material, they refined a spirit-seeking compass that could search for metal-type spiritual power and evil aura. Chapter 465. The improved spirit-seeking compass would emit 2 beams of spiritual light when activated. One of them was silver in color and was used to detect metal-type spiritual energy. The other was blue-black, used to detect baneful qi. The 2 beams of light couldn't penetrate the rock very well. They could only penetrate 3,000 feet into the rock stratum, which wasn't as good as the undisturbed grade 2 spirit-seeking compass. The only advantage was that it wouldn't be disturbed by metal-type spirit qi and baneful qi. It was very suitable to be used here. After all, it was just a rough improvement. It was enough to detect metal-type spirit qi and baneful qi. Wang Daoyuan activated the spirit-seeking compass in his hand. 2 beams of light, one white and one black, flew out. Without using his divine sense to control the direction, the 2 beams of light would automatically search for the place with the densest metal-type spirit qi and baneful qi. The 2 beams of light entered the stone wall north of the cave abode. This made Wang Daoyuan relieved. He didn't have to choose between finding the grade 4 Heaven Fiend Gold or the Metal Spirit Vein or Spirit Core first. He still had to worry about being discovered when he dug outside the cave abode. It just so happened that Jingping's cave abode was hidden by an array formation. It was safer to dig here. Moreover, the place where Jingping dug out the grade 4 Heaven Fiend Gold was a few hundred feet north of the cave abode. Next was Wang Daoyuan's best skill, digging holes. He drew out a wisp of dust-returning flame from the space and ignited the stone wall. This place wasn't like Mingsha Plain. Although there was a lot of earth-type spirit chi in the rocks, there was more metal-type spirit chi. The earth-type spirit chi obtained from burning the rocks could barely keep the dust-returning flame burning. Sometimes it wasn't enough and Wang Daoyuan had to use some extra spirit chi to replenish it. They didn't move very fast. The tunnel was 5 feet in diameter, so they could only move 30 to 40 feet forward in 2 hours. Half a month later, they reached the place where Jingping dug out the grade 4 Heaven Fiend Gold. The baneful chi and metal-type spirit chi were indeed denser here, and there were more Heaven Fiend Gold ores. Every few feet, they could dig out 1 or 2 pieces of grade 3 superior grade Heaven Fiend Gold the size of a fist. After a few days, the spirit-seeking compass detected a piece of ore with strong baneful chi and metal-type spirit chi more than 300 feet ahead. Since it appeared in a Heaven Fiend Gold vein, it could only be a piece of grade 4 Heaven Fiend Gold. Wang Daoyuan increased the output of his spirit energy and quickly pushed forward. 7 or 8 days later, an irregular spherical piece of Heaven Hellish Gold with a diameter of about 3 feet appeared. The baleful aura here was extremely strong, and Wang Daoyuan had no choice but to cast a level 3 spell that he basically didn't need, Flaming Divine Armor spell, relying on his fire spiritual energy to resist the corrosion of the baleful aura. Judging from the baleful chi, it was also a 4th tier lower grade. Controlling the returning dust flame, Shaoqun burned all the rocks around this rank 4 inferior grade Heaven Demon Gold. Then he put it into a universe ring. This piece of 4th tier inferior grade Heaven Murderous Gold weighed at least 300 pounds. It was enough to make a group of early-stage golden core cultivators drool. Wang Daoyuan continued to drive the spirit-seeking compass after digging out this large piece of Heaven Hellish Gold. 2 streaks of light flew out. This time they didn't head north but rather diagonally downwards. Wang Daoyuan was overjoyed. He was looking for the place with the densest metal element spiritual chi and evil chi. He was looking for the source of the ore vein. Generally speaking, metal veins came from lava, and the source of the veins was relatively deep underground. The veins turned downwards, which meant that he was about to find the source. As he continued downward, the evil chi became stronger and stronger. The Flaming Divine Armor technique couldn't withstand it at all. He ordered the clone in the space to use the Blood Fire Fusang branch to refine an armor for himself. Half an hour later, the middle grade Tier 3 armor was completed. It was complete with armor, greaves, and a helmet. The armor was not even as strong as a 3rd tier lower grade Dharma artifact. However, the armor was engraved with dense flaming patterns. Under the activation of his spiritual power, his entire body seemed to be wrapped in flames. Most of the evil chi was isolated outside. This way he could stay in this dense evil chi for a long time. He controlled the returning dust flame and continued downward. After half a month, the evil chi became denser and denser. Even with the Blood Fire Fusang armor, it was difficult to withstand. In this half a month, he didn't find any large pieces of Heaven Hellish Gold. He only dug up a few pieces that were not even the size of a fist. At this moment, the 2 streaks of light of the spirit-seeking compass separated. The greenish-black light headed towards the southwest, while the silver light continued to head downwards towards the north. His goal was to find the metal spiritual fire. Naturally, he wasn't interested in the evil chi. The direction of the blue-black light should be the earth vein evil chi that formed the Heaven Hellish Gold. Wang Daoyuan followed the direction of the silver light and continued forward. Next, there was only the pure and extremely violent metal element spiritual energy. With the metal spiritual chi supporting it, the evil chi couldn't go any deeper. Wang Daoyuan didn't need to wear the Blood Fire Fusang armor anymore. Without the evil chi, there was naturally no Heaven Hellish Gold below. Wang Daoyuan dug up a few pieces of black iron crystals. These were originally ordinary black iron. After being cleansed by the metal spiritual chi for many years, the impurities were removed and they became completely transparent. The black iron crystals weren't very strong, but they contained extremely pure metal spiritual chi. They were excellent supplementary materials for refining metal spiritual artifacts and nurturing metal spiritual artifacts. The heaven hellish gold above should be formed by the black iron crystals being corroded by the evil chi. The deeper he dug, the denser the metal spiritual chi became. At this moment, the density of the metal spiritual chi was very close to 4th tier midgrade. The distance between this place and the metal spiritual vein of Blood Demon Ridge was also getting closer and closer. Wang Daoyuan continued forward. 5 days later, the spirit-seeking compass found a hole 300 feet diagonally below. The hole was filled with pure metal spiritual chi, and the density had reached the limit of a 4th tier mid-grade spiritual vein. Wang Daoyuan was overjoyed. He had dug up the metal spiritual vein spiritual eye. Whether Blood Demon Mountain had a metal spiritual fire or not depended on this. Whether there was a spiritual fire or not, this trip was about to end. Wang Daoyuan was full of energy. He urged the dust-returning flame to burn the rock layer. At this rate, he would be able to reach the spiritual eye in 8 or 9 days at most. Controlling the dust-returning flame didn't take much effort. He urged the spirit-seeking compass to explore in other directions. Since this place could produce many black iron crystals, it might also produce other precious metal spiritual chi. Before entering the heaven hellish gold mine, he had heard that Blood Demon City had Tai pure gold Oregon. And Tai pure gold or must have a large amount of metal spiritual chi. His goal was the spiritual eye, which was the place most likely to produce Tai pure gold Oregon. If he could find a Tai pure gold, or he might be able to pick up a few pieces of 4th tier Tai pure gold. The spirit-seeking compass really did find a metal spiritual material, but it was more than 300 feet to the east. Because his spirit-seeking compass was too crude, it could only detect pure metal spiritual chi. From this, he deduced that there might be a metal spiritual material. As for what kind of material it was hard to say whether it was Tai pure gold or not. The most important thing now was the metal spiritual fire. Even 4th tier Tai pure gold was far less important than the spiritual fire. He continued to push toward the spiritual eye. After more than 20 days he finally reached the location of the spiritual eye. The dust-returning flame burned through the rock wall where the spiritual eye was, and a pure metal spiritual chi gushed out. This concentration was only a hair away from 4th tier spiritual chi. The metal spiritual chi dissipated, and Wang Daoyuan walked into the hole. The hole wasn't big, only 2 or 3 feet in diameter. At the bottom of the hole there were dense cracks in the rock. The metal spiritual chi seeped out from these cracks. In the center of the hole, there was an irregular round silver metal ball more than a foot in diameter. Wang Daoyuan was no stranger to this thing. It was Tai pure gold. Inside the Tai pure gold, there were violent metal spiritual chi fluctuations. This piece of Tai pure gold wasn't perfect. There was a crack at the bottom that went deep inside. Wang Daoyuan's divine sense penetrated the crack and probed inside the Tai pure gold. He saw a silver flame inside. The flame was only as thick as a chopstick and less than an inch tall. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.